Hey kids, imagine meeting you here. It's just after high noon. May I be the first to say a good afternoon to you. Man, it's gorgeous outside. We're going to make it fun for the next 3 hours. At least that's our hope. My name is Matt Murphy, and this is The Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Allow me to inundate you with the pleasantries, and we'll get the subject matter underway momentarily. Today is Thursday, August 17, 2023. You probably knew that by now. It's our episode 401 on these airwaves, and we're pleased to be here. You can find us in any manner of downloading or whatnot of your choosing. We're obviously on the FM dial. We're on streaming platforms, and you can find us on Supertalk TV, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch. If you so desire, the F&M Bank chat line is up and running there, so you can communicate with the show. You can also communicate via the Super Text line, 615-737-9986. That's also the way to communicate with us via the telephone lines, and I love a good telephone conversation. I love a good engagement, especially if you disagree with me. If you disagree with me, you go to the front of the line, 615-737-9986. We give those numbers often and as quickly as possible just to keep you on your toes. Keeping us on our toes today will be Steve Abramowitz with the Mill Creek View Tennessee podcast. He'll be along at 12:30 to talk special session, amongst other things. We'll talk to Tori Venable of Americans for Prosperity at 1 o'clock today, or just after 1 o'clock. And I'm anticipating a couple of guests. Well, Tommy Tuberville, Senator Tuberville, will be here in the 2 o'clock hour at about 2:30 or 2:40. So I promoted this last week. You might recall, for you regulars, last week I was, Tuberville's coming, and he never showed, and we scratched our heads and wondered why. I then went back and looked at my correspondence with Senator Tuberville's folks up in Washington, D.C., and it was pretty quickly apparent that I had my dates wrong. I thought it was last Thursday, but it was this Thursday. But we will talk with him about his hold on the typical way that military promotions are processed in the United States Senate and why he is doing that. And we'll also talk about NIL, that is name, image, likeness with regard to college football. Senator Tuberville is of the opinion that we need to do something about that, specifically that we need to standardize something so that the states aren't doing their own things, or that they're not doing anything with regard to how much colleges and universities are paying their players nowadays.
I can't remember where.
By the way, that's Bell.
Hi. I read that the whole thing with him holding up the is it the Pentagon budget?
It's not the budget. I mean, it's the nomination process.
Oh, that's right. That's right. He's holding up the promotions. That there's the Senate rule that Schumer could invoke that would basically shut Tommy down, but he won't do it because he wants the issue. He wants to be able to blame Tommy for holding this stuff up.
Well, my understanding of it is what he could do is hold the votes singularly, right? So you have these individuals coming up. You could hold a vote. Tommy Tuberville has no authority to hold up singular votes on military promotions. What he's holding up is the ability for them to do them in mass. There's like 200 of them, and they just want to dump them all. They could start processing these military promotions and accomplish the same thing on their own, but they choose not to do it because they think the issue is a good one for them.
Yeah, he gets more out of it if he just lets Tommy go.
Well, that's right. And I was talking to somebody about this earlier today that, the great Rush Limbaugh used the phrase low information voter. And it is true that the Democrats rely on low information individuals in order to accomplish their task. And for the low information person, if you're watching the mainstream media networks, they're not telling you the truth either about it. They could accomplish these things, and no military position has been left unfilled. They have temporary status. Most of these people have temporarily taken the role that they will eventually take once the vote is held. But they know that all that CNN has to do is splash up on the screen, Tuberville holds military hostage or whatever, and sadly, half of the country will buy into that and believe it without doing their homework.
And Tommy's doing this because the Democrats are trying to allow for state-funded abortion in the military, correct?
Well, federal-funded abortion. What Tuberville's Tuberville's point is this, that if without a vote of Congress, they change their policies and they violate the Hyde Act in doing so, right? The Hyde Amendment states that you will not use federal money to fund abortions. And his point is, if you are allowing for within the military abortion vacations, and we're paying for abortion vacations, then that is in effect funding those abortions, and it is a violation of the Hyde Amendment.
How could it not be?
Well, they say, well, we're not actually funding the abortion procedure itself. We're just funding the travel, and we're funding their ability to get, and they also have health insurance through the military. I mean, it's nonsense. I mean, yeah, it is, of course, but we'll talk with Tuberville about that in the 2 o'clock hour. Plus, we may have two individuals I've overscheduled. Representative Scott Sapicki filed a bill yesterday for the special session that would require SROs in all public schools. It might be private schools as well. I don't know. We're anticipating a conversation with Scott Sapicki about the nature of his bill in the 2 o'clock hour. We also I casually invited Debbie Matthews, our good friend from down in Columbia, to stop by. Both of those individuals, it's my understanding, are at a Trump fundraising event happening right now. How cool would it be if somebody called us from that event? If you're listening on your headphones right now, on your earbuds right now, and you're at the Trump event at the Four Seasons downtown as we speak, why not give us a call? 615-737-9986. I know somebody's listening.
Mega MAGA.
It's a Mega MAGA event at the Four Seasons. Did y'all know that Trump was in town today? I found out a couple of days ago. I forgot to mention it yesterday. I was told not to give the location of the event prior to the event. But now that the event has started, I feel comfortable in giving said location.
Is he
Where
being,
is the Four Seasons?
Is he being indicted in the state for any reason?
I don't think so.
It's
I don't think we're doing anything. I mean, we should get on board.
We got to help this man.
I mean, every time he gets indicted, he seems to grow stronger.
Yeah, it's like it's poll number energy.
Well, I know he's raising some money today, boy, because I got one of the people I was talking to about it. I said, "Hey, can we get?" You don't get told no unless you ask. And so I said, "Hey, what about getting Donald Trump on the show?" They told me probably not. I said, "Okay, well, what about me going to the event?" Because I would have, had I ability to go to the event, I would have talked to Mandis and we would have worked something out. I mean, that's a big deal, And I think it was a minimum of $1,000.
It's you don't get told yes unless you ask. And if you don't ask, it's an automatic no.
Right.
And to answer your question, it's on 2nd Avenue North.
Okay.
No, South. I'm sorry, South.
Okay. That makes more sense. It was something of a high dollar ticket to get in the door. I think that the low end ticket was $1,000. I was told that, and I'm just letting you know. I mean, look, it takes money to win elections. I mean, it's going to take somewhere in the neighborhood of what? $750 million, maybe more, to win a presidential election in 2024. So I'm not knocking it, and if you got it, use it. A minimum of $1,000 a plate to get into the event, and I was told that it was north of $20,000 to have your picture taken with Trump. And I bet that he stands in line for a long time taking pictures with people. So a fundraiser going on right now as we speak, and we'll give you the latest on that if we are able. I don't know how long the event's going to go. March 4th is no mistake, folks. If you don't know what I mean when I say March 4th, then you've not heard the latest regarding the prosecution of Donald J. Trump in the state of Georgia. Miss Fanny, as I'm going to call her, I decided that last night. Have you seen where they're trying to pronounce her name differently now?
Fanny?
It was Fani. It was Fani.
It's Fanny. Stop trying to pretend it's not.
Oh, no, it's Fani. It's funny that it's Fanny, and we're calling her Miss Fanny. So Miss Fanny decided that she wants to get this prosecution of Donald Trump going in the middle of March. More specifically, she has decided that March 4th is the best day for the prosecution. That just so happens to be the day before Super Tuesday. If you think that's a mistake, I've got some hardware, some property to sell you in New York. It's called Brooklyn Bridge. I'm happy to sell it to you. Obviously, it's not a mistake. It is very intentional, and it denotes the political nature of the prosecution against Donald Trump, both in Florida. And by the way, I understand that the nature of the charges against Trump are a little bit different in Florida than they are in Georgia. The Georgia prosecution is nonsense. The Manhattan DA prosecution is even more nonsense. The Washington, D.C. prosecution, in my opinion, a lot of hooey and nonsense. It's a little bit different in Florida in as much as he had classified documents, and the accusation against him is he was showing those classified documents around after he knew they were classified documents and after the National Archives people wanted them back. One way or the other, they're all political, in as much as none of this would be happening if Donald Trump was not running against Joe Biden or against the Democrat cabal, depending on how you look at that. I do not, as we were joking around with Chris Hander in the Cross, I do not suggest to you that Joe Biden actually knows what's going on, because I don't think Joe Biden's that good of an actor. And you would have to be a pretty good actor in order to act this dementia-addled and this infirm in front of the world.
Where am I? What's going to happen to me?
So, former President Donald Trump, as you well know, indicted earlier this week, 13 felony counts in Georgia in connection with the so-called attempt to overturn the election of 2020. The president of the former president of the United States, obviously is going to defend himself and grows stronger in the polling, if you believe the polling. A lot of my friends this is one of the things that, and I was talking to Cameron Smith about this yesterday, and I was speaking on it earlier today. I do a weekly visit down in Birmingham, Alabama, at my old stomping ground on Talk 99.5 with Dale Jackson. And Dale asked me, several questions along these lines about whether or not there is a path to victory in the general election in 2024. A lot of political pundits are predicting that Donald Trump will easily win the primary, and that is the design of the Democrats. The Democrats are prosecuting him, indicting him in all of these places for the express purpose of ensuring that he is the primary nominee. Well, one, I disagree with that to a certain degree, only in as much as Donald Trump doesn't need any help to win this primary. He's got this well in hand. Number two, while it may be so that it's a heavy lift for him to win the general election, I think it's a heavy lift for any Republican to win the general election, considering that the mainstream media is behind whomever the Democrats nominate for the presidency. You have the arm of the mainstream media, the long arm of the mainstream media, absent a few exceptions like Newsmax and to a certain degree Fox News. Although I don't know what to trust about Fox News half the time anymore, and I don't watch them anymore. But a lot of people do, because you get better news there than you do at these other networks. But when you've got the ABC, CBS, NBC, MSNBC, #NeverCNN, Washington Post, New York Times cabal behind you, well, you're already starting at a lead. And then they do believe that they have created the narrative around Donald Trump that they think they can beat. However, you Republican pundits that believe you got it all figured out, you're the same people that thought you had it all figured out in 2015 too. And I told you that you were wrong. Oh, they were all so sure that if Donald Trump gets elected, Hillary Clinton will beat him like a yard dog, like a rented mule. Never happened. So I'm not going to suggest that I have any idea what's going to happen in 2024 beyond that we'll get there. Hopefully we'll get there together. And hopefully Donald Trump will be victorious should he be the Republican nominee for president of the United States of America. And I think that he will be. So we've got that going on. We will give you an update on the wildfires in Hawaii as well. It just keeps getting more deadly and worse, and the expectation is that will continue for the foreseeable future in terms of the body count going up, because there are hundreds of individuals that are currently missing in Hawaii. The president of the United States announcing a little late that he has plans to visit Hawaii. What's he going to Lake Tahoe for? Does anyone know? Donald Trump, pardon me, my goodness. Come on, Murphy. Joe Biden is heading to Lake Tahoe, and the White House isn't saying why. He just got back from vacation. His brain is on permanent vacation. But he is scheduled to go out tomorrow to Lake Tahoe, and he's heading off Monday, I guess, to Hawaii, and then he's back to Lake Tahoe, and he's there for until next Thursday. I'm wondering if he's getting some work done on his, like, you know, hairline. Doesn't he have plugs? Yeah, Joe Biden.
Give me a break.
I do think Joe Biden has plugs. He's had a facelift or two, too. You can kind of tell that. So that's the immediate thing that I think. If you've got nothing on the schedule for 3, 4, 5 days, then you're trying to get some work done.
Did you see the declassified documents that were released about his family yesterday?
You mean the Peters story?
No. Apparently, NASA didn't want to admit it, but apparently Bo died in Apollo 1.
Oh, yeah. Same one that got Gus Grissom?
Yeah.
On the launching pad? That's sad. Sad when you lose somebody like that. No, I was thinking there's a story out there that's running the rounds, and James Comer of the Oversight Committee is on top of this, that we now know the alias that Joe Biden used on Hunter Biden's laptop computer for the purpose of evading detection. Specifically, I mean, if you want to talk about conspiracy, what about the Vice President of the United States of America avoiding the Open Records Act by using a fake email address and a fake name for that email address? How about that? Well, we now know. If you're wondering why they started calling old boy up in Delaware a special prosecutor, this is the reason. You have to have a special counsel to shut the Oversight Committee down. And now anyone called before the Oversight Committee is going to use the excuse that, well, we've got this special prosecution going on, so there's nothing that we can do about that. We can't testify before you until that's shut down, because they don't want to tell the truth about what they found on Hunter Biden's laptop. And no, I don't think the code name was the Kraken. I think it's a slightly different thing, Steve, but that's good thinking there. 615-737-9986, 1221 on Super Talk. Hey, friends, Matt Murphy here, and I have lost now almost 27 pounds. Thank you to PhD Weight Loss, and I've got more to come. I'm so excited about it. I mean, it's the best testimony that I can give in the 7 weeks that I've been doing the program, and I think we're at 7 weeks now, and I weigh in tomorrow, so I'll have a weight update for you. I have lost almost 27 pounds. I mentioned earlier to my illustrious producer there that I am wearing a pair of pants that I've not been able to get into in about a year or so. Tried them on this morning, and they fit just fine. How about that? That's what PhD Weight Loss does for you. The average guy will lose 3 to 5 pounds a week. The average lady between 2 and 3 pounds a week. And friends, this works. I'm a testimony to it. I love the structure of PhD Weight Loss. I love the fact that we have a counseling session once a week, and Rachel, my counselor, is very supportive. She's there for you. She's not working against you, and she's not there to guilt you. She is there to promote weight loss, to help minimize cravings, and to maximize results. And they do it. Oh, by the way, have I mentioned their guarantee? If you don't get within 5 pounds of your target weight by the end of your program, PhD will continue to coach you for free until you do. It's the PhD guarantee. PhD Weight Loss. It's just the smarter way to lose weight at PhD. Go to myphdweightloss.com. That's myphdweightloss.com. Defense Systems is a life safety and security consultation firm right here in Middle Tennessee, specializing in physical security consultation as well as active violence mitigation training. That's a fancy way of saying this. They help train you to make sure that you're aware of some of the warning signs surrounding your school, your corporation, your healthcare facility, your law firm, or any place that people gather. Cumulus Nashville, as a matter of fact, utilized this training for their personnel. We've talked with Brink Fiddler over the years. You know how he does his business. I absolutely love Brink and the way that he provides the training and the custom protection solutions unique to your particular location and unique to your own security issues. They've trained well over 30 middle Tennessee schools, and I bet that number has gone up astronomically since Brink last gave me that figure. And they want to train you. It's as simple as this, folks. Hope is not a plan. It's time to get trained. And if you feel like it's time, I encourage you to utilize Defense Systems to do just that. Reach out today, 615-236-6484, 236-6484, or go to defensesystems.com. Again, that's defensesystems.com. Super Talk 99.7 WTN, Matt Murphy Show in progress. You know, there was an issue brought up recently at the Metro Council involving license plate readers, and I was listening to some of the commentary involving what is being called a debate about this. Now, Freddie O'Connell is running for mayor, and Freddie O'Connell, while the Metro Nashville City Council voted to pass a resolution this week that would allow full implementation of license plate readers to be installed in the Nashville metro area. I think Councilman Jeff Syracuse proposed an amendment to the resolution clarifying that 2 or more votes needed to be taken by the next council before the license plate reader program is started. Syracuse's amendment says that if there's any data breach of the technology, the contract with the LPR vendor would be terminated. And the police must act in consultation with community advocacy groups with each precinct to decide where the technology will be placed. In other words, there's going to be active participation amongst the community as to where the best place is to put this technology. These license plate readers are designed to catch bad guys, okay? Criminals. They're not designed to catch community members. They're designed to catch criminals. And if you have criminals within your community, one would think that the community would want to ferret out those criminals and get them behind bars where they belong. The license plate readers in the 6-month trial program have proven to be mighty effective. However, sadly, against the advice of Metro Nashville Police, against the advice of individuals who are actually determined to stop crime in the city of Nashville, the front runner in the mayor's race, which will be decided in a month, less than a month now, voted against it. We had Alice Rowley on the program yesterday. Alice says, obviously, she's in favor of the license plate reader technology. She agrees that there needs to be fail-safes and safety checks to make sure that it's not being used in an improper fashion, but the 6-month pilot program indicated that it's being used as it should be. However, Freddie O'Connell at a candidate forum last month before the general election, he voiced, quote, privacy concerns regarding the LPR technology, saying at the time, quote, I think the thing you've got to be careful about is this data that can be persisted can be hacked. You don't want victims, people with medical and health issues, tracked with their movements around the city. What Freddie O'Connell is doing there is creating a problem that does not exist for the purpose of avoiding taking a stand on this issue. I've noticed a pattern here. Freddie O'Connell is on the Metro Council. He was sitting in, well, where Steve Abramowitz is sitting right now. He's sitting in a chair in my studio, and I asked him directly, where are you on racetrack renovation? Well, Matt, I haven't really studied the issue. What do you mean you haven't studied the issue? You're on the Metro Council. What you're doing is avoiding taking a stand on the issue because you don't want to piss anybody off in Nashville. You're worried about the leftist of the left voters in the city, so much so that you're not willing to do the right thing. Now, you're welcome to disagree with me on my position on this. That's fine. I'm just asking you to take a stand, and he seems to be trying to do the same thing with LPRs. So we'll discuss that, amongst other things, with our good friend Steve Abramowitz, who's joining us in studio. That's next on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Hey, folks, Nashville Painting Company is the one-stop shop for all things painting in this community, and I recommend them heartily. I've known Jeremy Reeves since before you did. What I mean by that is I knew him back in Birmingham. He painted my house about 15 years ago in Birmingham and absolutely loved it then. He moved on to greener pastures here in Nashville and started Nashville Painting Company when he did. It's a locally owned company. They're licensed, bonded, and insured, of course. They are highly rated with every rating organization known to man, including the Better Business Bureau, and they're just the best at what they do. If you've noticed some fading or chipping of paint on the exterior of your home, that is not only unsightly, it can also cause damage to your home, and you need to be aware of that. Plus, if it's time to refresh a room, a kitchen, a great room, whatever it might be, they're there for you and ready to do it. They do brick staining, brick lime washing. They stain your fence. They stain your decks. All you need to do is give them a call, 615-635-0350, 635-0350 for our friends at Nashville Painting Company. It is Super Talk 99.7 WTN, Matt Murphy and you, 1235. Pleased you've joined us. Do give us a call or a super text, 615-737-9986. I mentioned Tori Venable with the Americans for Prosperity group will be here at 1 o'clock today. There's an event coming up later on in the month that I am pleased to be a part of. I think I'm doing some MC work at this event, and Tori will tell you all about said event that is happening on August 31st right here, and a lot of notables will be there to include Congressman Mark Green, Congressman Andy Ogles, Senate Majority Leader Jack Johnson, just to name three, and there's many others that will be at the event. We'll talk about that in the 1 o'clock hour. In the 2 o'clock hour, Senator Tommy Tuberville will be here to discuss his hold on Pentagon promotions, as well as potentially Scott Sapicki and maybe even some surprise special guest leaving the Donald Trump event that is currently going on at the Four Seasons. Frankly, I'm a little bit surprised my next guest isn't there instead of here. He's Steve Abramowitz with Mill Creek View. You guys hear me talking about Steve all the time. We've spoken with him on the phone, and now we finally get to talk in person. Hey, Steve. How are you?
I'm doing great. And before we run out of time, because radio is like that, I want to wish you a happy birthday.
Oh, you're very kind. You brought me a gift.
Yeah, and I get to be the first of your 400 season. So
there you go. Yeah, we're in the 400s now. I like that. So how are things going with you? You've been here, what, a little over a year?
Yeah, basically this week is my 1-year anniversary of getting in the car, driving across country with my dog and the last load of furniture to meet up with my wife and kids. I spent a month and a half on a couch telling Washington State, be more like Tennessee, darn it. And if you don't, I'm leaving. And I left.
Well, that you were probably pretty smart. After a month and a half, you realize, I'm just spinning my wheels over here.
Well, after 20 years, actually, spinning the wheels.
Is that how long you were there?
It was a month and a half waiting till the last furniture came and whatnot to actually move and become a Tennessean.
So I'm approaching 2 years. November will be 2 years for me. You're just beyond a year now?
Literally a year this week.
Okay.
Monday.
How's it been?
It's been fantastic. I mean, 125 episodes, building a quilt of data on voices that make Tennessee, people that won't otherwise be heard. It's been a thrill. So it gives me the opportunity to, be invited to Marsha Blackburn's press meeting the other day in Franklin. And had I just been a guy not paying attention like most of them, wouldn't be doing that. So.
I love what you're doing. And one of the reasons that I'm so proud to talk about you on our show in the fashion that we do on occasion and talk with you, you bring yourself to Tennessee and you commit yourself. And I don't want to speak for you, but you're like, I'm going to figure not just the national scene out, but I'm going to drill down and figure out what Tennessee's all about and just dig my hands into the fabric of what makes this state go. And in a year, I mean, you've interviewed anybody that's anybody in the state.
127 people, not everybody. There's some still wish lists out there that I'm working on and I hope to get at one point. But that was 50 years of experience in California and Washington State, seeing what would happen if you allow it. The minute I got here, actually I did one show from the road, from the Mount Rushmore, again with my co-pilot, the dog, Caroline. Hi, Caroline. To get here, she's listening. I know she is.
Oh, I'm sure she is.
Always put Matt Murphy on for Caroline. She's angry. No, just kidding. That I knew who to call and say, hey, come on this show and let's keep the show going. And it was a Washington State-centric show, and I love the compare and contrast. So my producer Steve, is still in Linwood, Washington, behind the Emerald Curtain. He gets to pipe in and say, oh, why can't we have somebody like John Gentry on?
So what has been, as you've been in Tennessee, has there been any pleasant surprise, and has there been any negative surprise for you?
It's all been pleasant. I love this. Well, the weather, holy smokes, this summer with lightning and thunder rolling. I mean, I've been a West Coast guy my whole life, and I thought I knew what rain was. This is something different.
It's a different kind of rain, isn't it?
It's a different kind of rain. You wake up, your roof may be gone. Not with snow, but with wind. So that's been a pleasant surprise. The weather's fantastic. The people are fantastic. And most of the people that are so fantastic are people like me from New York, California, Chicago, getting away from what I have been reporting on. Because I also have the newspaper, as you know. So I still have to report all the news going on there, and other like-minded people saying, no, this is the greatest state ever. And so then I have to say, well, by being in this show and talking to these voices who sometimes don't get heard, even on the right in a Republican state, they still have some of those liberal issues that you wouldn't expect. And so that was it wasn't a surprise. I knew it, but to be actually to look under the rock and see, oh yeah, if they do that electronic voting thing, they're going to go right down the same path as California and Tennessee and Washington, which I spent 50 years trying to tell people don't do it, but they did it.
Well, and one of the reasons I think you're such an important voice is that you were out there and you saw how real liberals operate when they get ultimate control.
Yeah.
Right? And so you can reflect on that and show us the warning flags. You know the warning signs. And you can identify those in a way that I don't think lifelong Tennesseans, no offense to lifelong Tennesseans, but if you've not experienced that level, I lived in Connecticut for a year, that level of liberalism is a different world than what we experience in Tennessee.
Exactly right. And you would think, like, here's a surprise right here. I mean, take a look at these charts and I'll tell you what I'm talking about. The labor participation rate in the state and men especially is so low.
Holy
so
shnikes,
a lot of
look
people,
at this.
Yeah, a lot of people give me a call and say, "Where are the men? Where are the men?" I've got a friend, David Markowitz, who also left California and has a radio show, and he talks about where are the men? Where are the men? And a friend of mine, Brett Bowles in Ohio, podcast, where are the men? Where are the men? Well, that's the generational decline that we've had in our men. And so, they don't get a good education. You know, the TCAP scores are pretty bad. We all had COVID, so we'll blame that for 2 years, but that's going back 40. And Tennessee is a 100% Republican state for voting for president since 2000. So the politicians don't really act on behalf of, I believe, the voters. And so I'm talking to the voters, not so much the politicians, although some are great, but there are some voices out there that need to be heard.
This graph that Steve just shows me, and I'll show you for you, those of you watching on Super Talk TV, I'll hold the graph up. It's from 1950, is that right? Yeah, 1950 to 2020. And the labor participation rate by men was above 85%, somewhere hovering between 85 and 90% in 1950. And is this right? It's down below 70% now. And I see the COVID. You see COVID there. It's crept back up, but it's still under 70%.
And everybody says, oh, Tennessee's an economic miracle, which reminds me of the Celtic miracle in Ireland, which was pumped up on debt and then crashed, or the Perth. I saw it in Perth, Australia in the 80s. That's what that means, because even if we are having an economic miracle, it's the haves, not the have-nots.
It's one of the reasons I don't discuss unemployment rates on the show, because I think the entire system of how you're evaluating unemployment is garbage.
Right. Plus, they include people who are on disability, so they're not working; they're just getting the dole, basically.
And if you decide that you're just going to drop out of the system and not participate in the workforce, then you're not counted anyway.
The denominator just went up,
right. And obviously the politicians take advantage when it's good, and the unemployment rate's 3%, and it's just a phony number.
Right. And so the rest of the world, all 49 other states, think that Tennessee is an economic miracle. The reddest of red states, it's all perfect there. It's the last stand, which I agree with, because our Constitution is so great. You know, Thomas Jefferson said of all the constitutions, Tennessee's got the most Republican one, and it wasn't even a state yet, but it's so simple. It's 4 pages long. You can get it. But the people don't know it because they don't teach it in school. So we have an education problem, which means the next generation is going to have a problem, just like the last generation has a problem, sorry to say. And you get this. So it goes on, where it's a state that can be perfect. It can actually turn the whole country around, the volunteer state. But if you do the things that the liberal politicians, the uniparty folks, whether they're from California recently or Texas or Chicago, and they come here and they want to get elected, or the ones from Shelby County or the one from Davidson County, they could easily. It was only 2009 when Democrats were the majority, and they were a majority for a long, long time before that. Some of the things the Republicans are doing are paving the way for that to happen again, because they're not holding up Republican values, quote unquote Republican values.
It's one of the reasons that I stand against the concept of eliminating political parties, because then the political parties are naturally going to form whether you label them or not. And I was in Alabama when Alabama shifted from a Democrat-led legislature to a Republican legislature in 2010. It was the same year that it happened here. And I watched as pretty quickly, once the Democrats, after 2014, when they seized even further control and had supermajorities in both houses of the legislature, I watched as the Democrats became non-consequential and the Republicans split between more mainstream Republicans. This is prior to Trump, more mainstream Republicans and more kind of anti-establishment Republicans. And it's natural that happens.
Yeah.
And so I fight back against anyone. Oh, we need to. These arguments, these fights are good things. What I suggest is that it becomes a negative if we do not simply agree to disagree on certain issues and then vote accordingly to who's going to better represent us.
It's a messy process for sure, and low information or no information voters, because the media often lies. No offense to present company.
No,
I
it's
tell
all
the truth
good.
and you tell the truth. But a lot of them don't, right? I talk about MSNBC all the time as being, propaganda type of information. And so voters think they know what they're doing, but they really don't. But living in California, especially after Pete Wilson and Nixon and Ronald Reagan were governors, and they had a Republican party to at least maybe be in the minority, but not a super ultra minority, you get to see exactly what liberal governance will do, which leads to a Gavin Newsom who wants to be president of the United States. So let's face it, he's got a failed record. But my point is about that is it's exact mirror image in Tennessee right now. Super majority of Republicans, super minority, they could leave the state. The Democrats could hide in Colorado to miss a vote, and they'd still have quorum and be able to vote any which way they want. But they're not doing that. They're like the special session. There are 18 things on there that have to do with We can get into that if you want, but it's not what any Republican platform would say to do.
A lot of my friends, and I think I'm including you in this number based on what you just said, a lot of my friends are very frustrated with the concept of the special session. I don't get the amount of heartburn that some do.
Well, there's nothing in there that they couldn't have waited until January of 2024 to do. It's all just normal pandering and healthcare money going.
Well, I don't think, and I push back on it. I don't think trying to tackle crime in Memphis is pandering.
Well, Memphis happens to be represented by one of the expelled Congress people, right? And it is the highest crime rate in the country, the whole country. So they've got an issue in Memphis. I agree. For some reason, the chief of police won't come on the show, and that's okay. We'll get there at some point. But
I bet I know why, Steve. But anyway, go ahead.
But if you look at a map of Tennessee, it's a sea of red with two little islands of blue. The Nashville and Memphis. Those are the two highest crime rates. You could throw in Chattanooga and Knoxville, and they have their issues, but they don't relate. It's 22 people per 1,000 crime victims in Shelby. That's the highest in the whole country. If you took it out of the statistics, it'd be the safest place on earth. Why do all the law-abiding people that live in the Red Sea have to have a harder time buying a gun? Because nobody says you can't go buy a gun, but they're making it harder for them when it wouldn't have done a darn thing coming to any city, not just Nashville, but when somebody's crazy and wants to kill someone.
No, and I don't believe in making it harder to legally purchase a gun, but I do find it interesting that if I present the concept of getting guns out of the hands of gangbangers on the streets of Memphis, if I present it in that way, I'll get wild support from this listening audience.
But those laws are already on the books.
Sure.
So arrest them and prosecute them, and that's the problem. Somebody at the top of government was very keen on letting criminals out of jail after due process. Now they want to take guns away from you and I, or make it harder without due process.
Well, here's what I'm
cool.
Here's what I'm promoting. I'm promoting giving the state more authority through the governor's office. We saw it with Ron DeSantis in Florida just last week. Give them more authority to replace DAs that are going against not the spirit of the law, but the actual law in allowing people out of jail and being soft on crime. I respect local rule. I know you do too. I respect the concept of letting the local people elect their own local officials, but when you are going against, when Funk in Nashville goes against the law when it comes to allowing criminals, I want to see more authority. Now, I don't know that they'll do that in the special session, but this is why I'm open to these conversations, and I understand the consternation of people who say that it's a waste of money and it could wait. I asked Lee about that yesterday.
Well, let me ask you this. So I've looked at year over year, every session, which is January 1st through April, right? We're pretty short. They don't make a lot of money. I understand. I feel bad for these guys, especially the ones like Richie who have to come all the way up from Blount County.
Yeah, it's a weird state. So if you're coming from Bristol.
And then they got to rent a hotel, which is very expensive. Sure. But my point is that if they have a special session, he's only done this 3 times. It should be something that's an emergency. It has nothing to do with, the drugs that maybe transgenders have been proven to become violent on, or any of that. Vanderbilt and all of the things that they did. It's kind of more of a normal session. So it's costing the state a lot of money. Everyone's got to come up here in the middle of summer. Luckily, it's not 100 anymore. It's now down to the 80s, but it's still, it's still
warm.
It'll
get back. Yeah.
It'll get back there. So they have to do this, get away from their families, get away from their summer with kids going back to school, go and do these citizen legislatures to do a whole list of things that they could have done, and none of it, here's the key, was in Tennessee's 10 for 10. Bill Lee's 10 for 10. None of it was his campaign promises.
One of the arguments that I've heard, and I'll make it, is that if you engage in a conversation about public safety in a special session, you prevent the Justins of the world from perverting what you're attempting to do and turning it into a gun grab issue. Because in a special session, these representatives are disallowed from presenting anything that's not on the call, so they are not allowed to present, for example, an assault weapons ban bill.
My understanding is
session.
there's going to be about 100 bills introduced during the session,
and they'll throw most of them out.
We'll see. And most of the session, this is what my point, and I forgot to make it, was that every session there's 1,500 bills filed and 1,000 of them get through. And this state's 247 years old. I can't imagine we got along that long without these brand new laws that they keep passing. So it's another one of these, like, what are they even talking about? Just prosecute the darn laws on the books. If you kill somebody, it's murder. You can't execute them twice in the gas chamber, right? I'm just saying the law's already there.
No. You will get no argument from me that I wish we could govern less, because I think if we followed the laws on the books, a lot of this would be solved by simply doing that. I would agree with you.
Or incarcerate more, and that's one of the problems with Memphis, which you brought up, because that's almost like the defund the police that was happening in Seattle, where whole 2 city blocks were held hostage for over a week. I have friends and clients who lived in those apartments, could not get food while people were trading guns and drugs. And
wait, you had friends in the nation state of Chomp or Champ or whatever they were calling it?
Summer of Love, baby. Yeah.
Holy moly. All right, Steve, hold your thought there. We're going to continue the discussion, and I will ask Steve a question that I asked yesterday regarding Governor Bill Lee, and that is, why is it that so many conservatives dislike Governor Bill Lee, who would tell you that he is one of the, if not the most conservative governor ever to serve the state of Tennessee? It's 12:52 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Patriot Mobile is, simply put, the only Christian conservative mobile company in the United States of America. And if you are tired of giving money to woke corporations and the big 3 woke mobile companies, then it's time to get with Patriot Mobile. I strongly encourage you to do it. They believe in the same types of things that you do. Now, that's not the reason that you would use them as a mobile company. Outside of that, you would use them because they have the same great service. They have the same great coverage area. The cost is as little or less than the big 3 guys. Plus, they value free speech and religious freedom and the sanctity of life and the Second Amendment. It's also important to me. And switching is so easy. Never fear. You will keep your phone. You will keep your phone number. You simply call a U.S.-based customer service representative and you switch. It makes switching so easy. I invite you to do this today. Go online and find out more at patriotmobile.com/Murphy. patriotmobile.com/Murphy, or call 878-PATRIOT. That's 878-PATRIOT for Patriot Mobile. I encourage you to do this today. Activation is free if you use the offer code Murphy. Hey, friends, it's Matt Murphy. Let me talk to you about my buddies over at the Tennessee Men's Clinic. About 30 years ago or thereabouts, Evan Bass and his team developed a men's-specific health care for the purpose of making sure that you have the energy levels that you've become accustomed to later on in life, in your middle-age years and even in your later years. Fact of the matter is, certain aspects of your body, they diminish over time. Your T levels are one of those things. Do you know what your T levels are? And if you don't know what your T levels are, I'm telling you that this can affect your energy levels in areas beyond the bedroom, although they talk about bedroom activity a lot. I shy away from that. I know it's a personal matter, but here's the deal, guys. No shame in your game, because half of the guys listening to me will have some sort of impact in the bedroom at some point in your lives. If this is you and you're ready to do something about it, I encourage you to call the Tennessee Men's Clinic. 2 locations to serve, one in Midtown. The other is in Cool Springs in Franklin. I've got a telephone number for you and a website. Go there, do your own homework, do your research, and a simple consultation will cost you less than $100, and you'll get answers on the same day. 615-208-9090 is the number. 615-208-9090, or go to TennesseeMen'sClinic.com. That's TennesseeMen'sClinic.com. Here we are. Here we go. Hour number 2 of the Matt Murphy Show in progress. 105. Good afternoon. Matt here. Glad to have you with us on a Thursday edition. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Join us online at 997WTN.com. You can find all of the places where you can stream the show. There's a variety of different places. Really, anywhere you stream, you can stream us. You can also watch us on Super Talk TV. That's on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. We invite you to do that as well. The scenery on camera number 2 just got considerably better. You knew, Steve, I was about to do that. Steve Abramowitz is still with us, and I just looked right before I came on air. I just looked, and another Steve from California has written in and says, hey, you're not saying Steve's last name, so we know who you're talking about, and we can find ways to connect with the platform. I'm almost to my destination, and we'll miss the next segment. Who's Steve? Steve is Steve Abramowitz. And I talk about him all the time. He's with Mill Creek View. He has the Mill Creek View Tennessee podcast. You can go to mcview.us and find all of the information that you need about Steve. And you have, it's an online publication that you've got going on over there.
Yeah, mcview.us. You can get local news from all over the place. All the Mill Creeks. There's 23 of them. And there is, of course, the publication that comes out every 2 weeks, millcreekviewonline.com. That is Mill Creek View Washington News.
No, here's the big question. Did you name it Mill Creek View before you came to Tennessee?
I'm really glad you asked me that. I didn't name it. The paper's been around since 1991.
Oh, okay.
During COVID, the 82nd Airborne alumni, Reagan conservative Republican, moved out from Michigan and started it in Mill Creek, Washington, called the Mill Creek View.
Uh-huh.
I actually trademarked it, and now it's registered, but I've only owned it for a year and a half. So right before I moved to Tennessee, I created the podcast, the website, and all the rest, because he died during the whole COVID, can't let your visitation rights be respected and let your spouse come in there. So awful. She asked me to take over the paper to get it back up on its feet after he was gone, and he was a one-man show.
So were you aware that there was a Mill? I mean, I guess there's a Mill Creek everywhere. I guess.
There's one in Nolensville. That's all I can tell you. And I live in Franklin. And so that's why we're calling it the Mill Creek View, because there's Mill Creek View, Florida. There's Mill Creek View, Washington, California, Kentucky, everywhere. It's almost like Springfield in The Simpsons, where they don't know exactly where they live in the tri-states.
Because Springfield is everywhere, right?
But there's Mill Creek everywhere, so it translates. And so now I can do news from Utah and Idaho and all the rest, because it's basically flyover news that the mainstream won't cover. So, and I wanted to tell you something about Memphis too, by the way, because we always talk about the one. Can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
And I'll let Tori take over. But House Bill 7009, Representative Gillespie, Republican from Memphis. Mental health care professionals student loan repayment grant. That's in the special session.
Yeah, and it's going nowhere.
We'll see.
I have faith It's going nowhere.
One week from today, we'll know.
Once again, I mean, I get it, but let's get into that in just a second. After I do introduce, we created something of a triangular table or a round table, if you will, because Tori Venable is with us, and she is with Americans for Prosperity, and I'm just getting to know her, and so we'll do that together. Hello.
Hello, Matt. Thank you for having me.
It's absolutely a pleasure. Tell everybody about yourself and how you became associated with AFP.
Well, I'm a native Nashvilleian. I grew up in Antioch, and I worked at the legislature when Americans for Prosperity launched, and so I joined with them, a decade ago, and we've done a lot of public policy work since then.
Well, it's a pleasure having you here. We're talking about the big event that's coming up August 31st, and we'll kind of discuss that. I'm curious, has AFP taken a position on the special session? Do you dive into state issues like that, or are you more national-centric?
Oh, we definitely dive into state issues. We are the taxpayers' lobbyists on the Hill. There's not many of us up there that are fighting for taxpayers. So we did take a position that we thought it was a waste of taxpayer funding, that anything that they're doing right now could wait until January. I've talked to quite a few people. I don't think that there's anything that's that pressing that they have to do right now. However, we don't really engage on guns or social issues. Our main issue area is fiscal responsibility. And so government spending is very much in the wheelhouse, and we think that they're spending money they shouldn't be spending, and it's going to come at a tremendous public safety cost.
Yeah, I tried to do the analysis myself of kind of the pros and cons, what good could possibly come of the special session versus the negatives. And being the small L libertarian that I am, that's number one on my list, is that you're spending money that you need not spend if it is not something that must be handled now, absent the general session coming up in January. One of the bills that has just been presented, I think Sapicki got it in at 70-23, and I believe it was yesterday that he filed it, involves SROs in schools, which I think is one positive that can come out of this. Obviously the legislature is now fully funded, or the General Assembly is fully funded SROs in local school systems, public and private. And it's been a point of frustration of mine that the Metro Nashville school system does not have SROs in elementary schools, even in the aftermath of Covenant. It would seem to be an absolute no-brainer to do this. And I only ask that our government get involved when necessary, right? Whether it's local, state, or national. And if the local government is not going to take care of the needs of our youngsters in Nashville, then we got to look beyond that. And Sapicki's bill, I think, is going to require, not just fund, but require that any public elementary school in the state of Tennessee have SROs in it. Thoughts on that, Steve?
I thought it was the best thing to come out of the last session, because it actually was the only thing that addressed the hardening of the schools that didn't have SROs when the tragedy took effect, but then it became political 5 seconds later. I was down in LA in 93 during the riots. I think it was 93, 92. And I saw with my own eyes how quickly a race riot became a let's grab everything from Best Buy. And so the same type of thing here, where they took a tragedy, 6 people died, 3 children, 9 years old, and turned it into a let's punish all the law-abiding citizens and take away their guns from a super minority voice. That's what I don't like. And so when I see these bills, like you say, it doesn't have a chance of passing, then why do it? Don't do it. Stay home. Just boycott the whole darn thing and don't bother, because nothing should come of it. There isn't really a red flag law in there. And I was just on Twitter with Campbell, who ran for mayor the other day, didn't make it, saying there isn't a law ever created that will prevent somebody from killing somebody if they want to kill somebody, because they don't have to use a gun. They could use their hands, their fingers, poison, bombs, you name it. It happens all the time. You can't legislate evil, but you can waste a lot of taxpayer money. And so the healthcare portion of the special session is funding the exact same people that we're complaining about, who are funding the nurses at schools, the library books, the things that we don't really want as voters. And I brought all the statistics on for Tennessee voters. They don't want this. They don't want this, but Lee does. And so it's one man trying to do something that I don't really understand. Maybe you do better.
Well, Governor, I look at it slightly different way, and maybe I'm being a Pollyanna. Well, Governor Lee spoke on an issue and kind of laid it out before the people of the state of Tennessee. And I look at the call, and I look at the legislation specifically presented by the governor's office, and I don't know that he would say it this way, but I'll say it this way. It looks to me that Governor Lee got the message loud and clear that Tennesseans are not going to put up with a red flag law or any suggestion of a red flag law. And I think that's why the governor is not presenting a bill that's called red flag or order of protection or anything else. And frankly, I think everyone that's going into the special session this coming Monday knows that red flag laws are a non-starter.
So why didn't they cancel it?
Because he wants to, well, the governor says he wants to do something on public safety. Tori, you got a thought?
Well, yeah, I was going to say he kind of said he was going to do it. And at that point, he
dug
was,
in.
yeah, I mean, it was going to happen one way or another, even though the votes are not there for a red flag law. I mean, thank goodness, right? And that's something that the conservatives can claim, that they were heard loud and clear. And, the Senate Majority Leader, Jack Johnson, even was out there saying, no, this is not going to happen. So let's hope that we can count on what they say.
Do either of you buy into the theory? It's a theory that they are going to try something during the special. There's a contingent of conservatives that believe / fear that, despite what Johnson has said on my show, I bet he said it to you too, Steve, despite what Governor Lee has said on my show, despite what all of the other leadership would say, that they're going to try to slip one in there. Do you fear that at all?
I do. I'm watching every single bill that they do, because in the flurry of that 1,000 or 1,500 that they do every session, there's always some nugget in there that takes away our liberty. It's just a typical thing, which is what we were talking about earlier, is like, this is a Republican state. Don't do that. And I could show you the real poll that said don't do that, but they're going to do it anyway somehow. If they really meant what they said, Tori, I think you even said this on my show, they would basically cut off even more support within the medical community for anything that could lead to hormone treatment. It's not in there. Get tough on violent felons, including gun felons who already had their due process. Isn't in there. That's it. Those are the two results that everybody took a bullhorn and went down to the well to complain about because of the shooting at Covenant, which is almost like the smokescreen to pass, in my opinion, progressive blue state BS.
They talk. I mean, and one of the reasons I like you, Steve, is that you like me. I welcome anyone. Right. It doesn't matter whether you agree with me or not. And you mentioned Heidi Campbell. Heidi came on to speak about the possibility of a special session and to talk about a run for mayor. This is prior to the election. And I asked her about SROs in schools. And she's talking about eliminating guns, eliminating assault weapons, and you just basic affront to our constitutional rights. And I asked her about SROs in schools, and she said, well, no, we don't want to militarize elementary schools. It's fascinating to me.
That's a defund the police type of progressive argument. I know a company that actually has a 5-second alarm system that can tell the difference between a fire and a shooter, that could find the closest police officer in town. Metro could buy this, no problem. Way less money than they're talking about spending on this healthcare, forgiving student loans for, healthcare professionals. I hope Lee does it. It's not in the bill. It's not in the bill.
Lamberth has the fire alarm bill, which I think is good.
That's part of it.
Which is and the technology you're talking about is to identify whether we're talking about an actual fire or we're talking about smoke from the muzzle of the gun.
Yeah, because the 911 calls, they were freaking out. They didn't know what they were talking about, and it was too late. They could have saved lives if it was instant, and this technology does that, and that would help every community in the world, but for right now, it's not in the bill.
Tori, do you all know off the top of your head what a special session costs?
I think it's somewhere in the range of $100,000 a day.
Yeah, so
I think I've heard that before. And, I want to add one piece to this. So there are a lot of conservatives out there that are rightfully concerned because the devil is always in the details of legislation. This is something that we see all the time, and they amend bills. So the bills that people are seeing right now are not necessarily the form that it's going to pass in. And because we have a real lack of transparency in the Tennessee House, they could amend a bill and pass a bill through a committee that taxpayers would have no idea what was in it. Most of the members don't even get to see what's in it before they vote on it.
Yeah, Matt, can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
So those bills that I just told you about, like from Gillespie, you can see the text, but you can't dig into the summary. It doesn't exist yet. So all of these bills are, like the Affordable Care Act. Is it affordable? Do they care? It is an act. So it's a lot of hyperbole.
Right, along with the ability for the special session to limit what they can debate on based on the governor's call, comes the downside, which is what you two are discussing. And that
who
is
wrote the bill that you talked to yesterday about
the autopsy bill?
Yeah.
Nobody will say.
Who wrote it, right? I bet you
Lamberth presents it. I asked Lee directly whether it was his bill. He said no. I'm going to choose to believe the governor that it was not his bill. I mean, he did not present it from the governor's office, but
I think it was a healthcare lobbyist.
The House Majority Leader got it somewhere, and I have a lot of concern that bill is designed to prevent us from ever seeing any aspect of the manifesto again, because it covers, and the governor said it was specific. Lamberth said it was specific. I can't see the language, so I want to know how specific it is with regard to what you can and cannot see, because it just feels like that is a way to move past Covenant School without allowing the public to fully understand what that person was going through, what type of therapies she was under, what type of hormone treatments that she was under, and whether or not that had any. This is not, this is a matter of trying to figure out if she had drugs in her system that could have led her to do something as evil as this.
And how come we can find every grandmother who stepped on a blade of grass in D.C. within 5 minutes of January 6th, but we aren't allowed to see the text messages, the diaries, multiple, the laptops, multiples, the cell phone calls, multiple. I don't even believe there's a manifesto because I'm skeptical. I think it's a body of evidence that is ginormous because she was probably a social media person, 28 years old, using text to continue this. They won't let us see any of it. There's a reason. Why wouldn't they, when they will quickly tell you who shot up the Pulse nightclub in Miami, like within minutes?
Well, and if there's any suggestion that there is a right lane on any shooter in America, you have every bit of information about that individual at your fingertips in days, if not hours. I remember the shooter that left the manifesto that was claimed to be a right-wing, quote-unquote, manifesto. They had it out within like 8 hours of his shooting up a Walmart, and yet we are months into this situation. We can't see a scintilla of this evidence. And it's
something strange. It definitely lets the conspiracy people talk.
It's a First Amendment and a free speech issue.
Well, certainly. And you've heard me say, Steve, and Tori, I don't know if you've heard, I mean, in the absence of information comes speculation. So if you want the truth to get out there, provide the information so we can absorb it, and then we can develop opinions based on that material. Otherwise, we're left with the type of speculation that we've seen surrounding the Covenant event.
And it's bigger than that. I mean, if it turns out that she was on, I had Chloe Cole on my show. I don't know if you know who that is.
I do.
She's a young girl, terrible tragedy story that Kaiser Permanente in California convinced her. She thinks she has autism, so she's susceptible to messages to transition to a boy. So she had a double mastectomy at a very young age, and now she regrets it because she wants to have children. And so we feel really bad for her. And it was a great show in terms of understanding her young mind perspective, how she did this, and now she regrets it. But because they won't tell us what kind of drugs was this person on, what kind of psychological help was she under? What kind of care? Was she a red flag potential? But if we didn't have a red flag, since we don't have a red flag law that they want, could that have been prevented? They're not talking about that at all. They're talking about that sea of red that use their guns for hunting and fishing and hiking and teaching their kids how to, do the John Wayne thing, whatever the case may be, not go shoot up an elementary school that doesn't have SROs. So it's a disservice to public health and safety by not telling us at least what the autopsy would have reported, which is what kind of drugs was she on? Did she have psychotic episodes from the past?
Well, it is the oxymoron of the special session. And this is coming from a guy that doesn't have the heartburn about it that some do. That the reason to have a special session is that there is an emergency that needs addressing. The only way that you can suggest that there's an emergency that needs addressing is to address Covenant, and the only way to do that is to see all of the information involving Covenant. If the legislature can't see that information, they can't directly address what is the emergency that caused the special session.
Exactly.
Yeah, they would say public safety is an emergency, which I get, but these are all things that could have been handled during the regular session.
Ballistic glass, alarm systems, SROs on campus, veterans hired to go do that job,
requirements,
all
these
of
things.
The basic hard and the NRA will do it for free, but the NRA is the enemy of the left, so Justin Jones is never going to sit down with those folks. And
After the break, I'm gonna ask Tori Venable the easiest question she's ever been asked on radio or podcast, and that is, it's about taxes in Tennessee. We're gonna do that next. It's 1:23 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
You're a lying dog-faced pony soldier.
I was at the Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief in Franklin Monday, and it was for not my back, not my neck, or no chronic pain. It was for my knee. Did you know they have brand new technology at the Dr. Gill Center that can help your knees as well, and even soft tissue issues, which is what I discovered I had. Dr. Dominic put me through my paces. We found out that I have a strain in my knee, and so we did some ultrasound therapy. We did some laser therapy. I'm going back next week to get my next session, and my pain is going away as a result, and that's what it's all about. Don't take pills, don't consider needles, and certainly don't consider surgery if you can handle this situation in a different way. And at this chiropractic center, back pain, neck pain, knee pain, hip pain, elbow pain, it can all be treated with no needles and no downtime. That's what it's all about. It's a more holistic way of looking at treating the issues within your body. 615-882-4838, 615-882-4838. Go see Dr. Gill. Don't take a pill. See Dr. Gill in the Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief in Franklin. The Murphy Show continues. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Join us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch. That is the Super Talk TV side of things. You'll find the F&M Bank chat line there, and you're invited to be a part of that. It's our episode 401 on the Matt Murphy side of things. Tori Venable is with us with Americans for Prosperity. Steve Abramowitz is hanging out with us as well. He's with the Mill Creek View podcast, and find him at mcview.us. U.S. Tell me about this event that's coming. I'm excited because I get to come in through the door and do whatever you tell me to, Tori.
Well, we're so excited you're joining us. So we're having our one of many Reigniting the American Dream Summits, and we're doing these all across the state. So there's going to be one in Jackson, but the one you're going to be at with us is going to be the Nashville one on August 31st. And we are going to have members of our federal delegation, Congressman Mark Green, Congressman Andy Ogles. We'll have Robbie Starbuck. We'll have you, Pamela Furr. And then members of our state legislature, State Senator Jack Johnson will be there as well. So we'll have a whole list of policy champions from both the state and federal level. It's a free ticket. You do have to register in advance. So for anybody listening right now, you can get your free tickets at afptnsummit.com.
Mm-hmm.
Pick out your free tickets. All you have to do is show up. You have a great night of entertainment to hear what they're doing at the state level and the federal level and how they're working for you to reignite the American dream.
What does that mean to you? What does that phrase mean to you?
Lower taxes, less government, more freedom, more liberty, all the things that we can do. And this is a number of different things, right? It's healthcare, it's energy policy, it's the things that Bidenomics and inflation is breaking Tennesseans' backs. It's what they can do to get government out of the way so that you can live your best life.
Maybe I'm overcoming a little bit of Stockholm syndrome, but I mentioned this the other day that I went to renew my tags in Wilson County. And I have a new truck now that I had to put tags on. And I remember that my F-150 in Alabama, a tag for 1 year was like $350. I mean, I didn't realize how ridiculous it was. My tag in Wilson County was $31.50. I'm thinking, wow, that's kind of nice.
Mine was $600 in Washington. So I don't even want to hear about Alabama.
A lot of the states actually charge you a tax on your vehicle every year. You have to pay a tax on your vehicle every year for owning your own vehicle.
That would be
ridiculous.
Washington. That would be Washington.
So, and with no income tax in the state of Tennessee, and I understand property taxes are where they are. Here's the easy question for you, Tori. I mean, where is Tennessee in terms of taxation in comparison to the rest of the nation? I mean, we're a pretty good tax state, aren't we?
We are. We're actually a great tax state. We're probably in the bottom 5, if
Property
not.
Taxes, for sure.
Yeah, as far as like if you're looking at the overall taxes together. So we are in a good position there. What we do have a problem with is spending. And so if we don't curtail the spending, the taxes will go up eventually. One of the things AFP is going to work on in the next year, we want to constitutionally ban a statewide property tax. Right now, there's not one, but there's a reason we went ahead and constitutionally banned a statewide income tax, and I think that we should do the same thing. That way, that is never on the table in the future.
I like it. And it's philosophically, I refer to myself as a libertarian with a small L, meaning I don't belong to the Libertarian Party. But at the same time, I believe in the basic philosophy of government. The government serves best, that serves least, and only when necessary. That said, it goes against my libertarian principles to, I won't say accept, but understand why there's a state-private partnership with like the Titans Stadium. So philosophically, I'm against any state funding going into that project. However, I understand through life experience that the government's going to get its money. And if you do not cultivate those things that bring the tourists in, eventually they're going to come for our incomes. So it's one of those kind of catch-22 deals where I don't necessarily support it, but I'm not necessarily going to scream against it. Now, you probably will disagree with me, Tori, and that's okay. And that's okay. Are you you don't like these private-public partnerships?
Well, I wouldn't even refer it to that. I would call it corporate welfare, because when we are paying corporations to come into Tennessee, or we are government picking winners and losers, the rest of us, the rest of Tennesseans, we have to pay for it. So when you have a business that you pay to come here, and even though they say they're going to create so many jobs, they don't even have clawback provisions half the time. So when we give them millions of dollars and they say they're going to create all of these jobs, and then they go bankrupt or they close up shop or go somewhere else where they get a better deal, Tennesseans are left paying for it. It's not right. It's wrong for government to pick winners and losers.
Especially if you think of a company like Facebook. Tennessee is going to give a tax break to a company that has basically hated us for the last decade of wealth creation that they've done.
Lied to us in a lot of ways.
Lied to us, censored us, shadow banned us. I don't have anything on Facebook for the most part. So why do I want my tax dollars? Because they have to go to public schools as well, even though my kids aren't in public schools. Another problem there too. It's a slippery slope, basically, of what you're talking about, where all of this government spending that should be towards the growth of government employing people. The number of healthcare professionals in Tennessee is ginormous. So obviously that lobby is very much listened to. There's more bourbon, steak, and money floating around in Nashville than you could ever imagine, all in going towards companies that don't really reflect the voters' will.
Well, and more than that, it's if Republicans do it for their friends, Democrats can do it for their friends, and it's just a matter of who's in power. It's still the same monster that the rest of us suffer from a two-tiered society.
Tori, one more time before we go, because I hate to end the conversation, but I've got to go. Talk to us about the Reignite event. It's happening on the 31st August. Where is it?
Millennium Maxwell Hotel. And so we will be in downtown Nashville that night. I believe it starts at 5:30.
Mm-hmm. Better get there early for a good seat.
Get there early for your good seats. We're expecting like 200 people plus. But there's going to be a free dinner included. So that's why we've got to have everyone RSVP. Wow. Plus, we kind of need to vet to make sure that, it is.
We get it.
Yeah.
Is Pamela Furr, you're both relative sisters, going to be there?
Pamela Furr will be there. So Pamela is now joined Team Americans for Prosperity.
I love it.
She
You're
is
letting
our
gingers in?
I mean, see I have red hair, right? Don't make them come over there.
She was my favorite Gilligan's Island.
Well, and one more time with the website for folks can
AFPTNsummit.com, AFPTNsummit.com.
I hope my boss isn't listening. I'm woefully late, but I got to do this for TV. Thank you for my gift. Look at that. How cool is that? Abramowitz listens to the show, apparently. He knows I am a jigsaw puzzle aficionado. He knows how much I love my old school country music and Dolly Parton. And I'm going to put this together and take a picture of it and send it to you. How about that?
Awesome. I'll put it on Twitter.
You're very kind. Thank you both, Tori and Steve. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
All right, we'll be back in just a moment. It is The Murphy Show, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Bye. Over the last week and a half, I've been telling you that if you're sweaty, call Jeff Eddy. And I'm proud of it. I don't care what anybody says about it. I especially want you to tell Jeff Eddy this comment that I've made when you call Efficient Heating and Cooling, whatever gets you to call. If your AC is running and you have it set at like 72 degrees and it's constantly running at 75, you've got a problem whether you know it or not. It is slaving to the point that it's going to go out, and then what do you do? Well, I encourage you to call Jeff Eddy in advance, but if you don't and you go out, then call Jeff Eddy and let one of his team come out from Efficient Heating and Cooling. They're a diamond contractor with Mitsubishi Electric and Elite Pro partner with Rheem. So when it's time to replace, they've got some product that they can replace you with. Otherwise, they're going to maintenance that unit and get it back up and running and get the maximum life out of your AC. It's never too early to talk about maintaining the heater unit. Before you know it, you're going to need to pop that on those cool autumn mornings. 615-784-4424, 615-784-4424 for Efficient Heating and Cooling. It is Super Talk 99.7 WTN, the Matt Murphy Show in progress. Thank you to our guests, Steve Abramowitz of Mill Creek View, spending some extended time with us, and Tori Venable of the Americans for Prosperity Group. That event, once again, is at the Maxwell, I'll get this wrong, it's the Maxwell something house, Metropolitan House, Millennium House, Maxwell Millennium House. One of the super texters will help me. Bell K is of no help. He's just sitting there with a blank look on his.
I haven't stayed in a hotel in Nashville in so many years.
It's over there on the north side, right? It's yeah. And no, 7159. You leave the hook lines on efficient heating and cooling to me. He wants to start the Sweaty Eddie. No, we're not doing that. Anyway, 615-737-9986. We'd love to talk with you. And thank you again to our previous guest. Steve stuck around from some extended time, and I love what he's doing over there at mcview.us. You can find out more about that, and you can find out more about the Americans for Prosperity event. And I'll get you the website here before we end the show. We're anticipating a visit with Representative Scott Cepicky. You know, Donald Trump was in town. He was at a fundraising event downtown. We're also talking with Tommy Tuberville in the 2 o'clock hour about NIL, that's name, image, likeness when it comes to college football, and his quote-unquote attack on the Pentagon. Officials at the Pentagon are saying, and this is something that Bell K referenced earlier, that they are sticking with their abortion policy despite U.S. Senator Tommy Tuberville's military holds. Tuberville continues to place these holds on military Pentagon officials, generals, and flag officer promotions due to the Department of Defense decision to pay for abortion-related expenses for service members with taxpayer dollars. And it is certainly it is an affront to the spirit of the Hyde Amendment, if not the letter of the Hyde Amendment. And I understand how they finagle the language to say that they're not violating the Hyde Amendment by paying for the actual abortion itself, but they're paying for everything else. And yesterday, the Pentagon said that there were no changes in the policy and no plans to change the policy. According to a Pentagon spokesperson, Sabrina Singh, no, we're not going to bring about a change to our policy on ensuring that every single service member has equitable access to reproductive health care. I love how they talk about abortions. Reproductive health care. If you are a service member stationed in a state that has rolled back or restricted health care access, you're often stationed there because you were assigned there. It's not that you chose to go there. Well, if you don't want to have a baby, there are ways to prevent yourself from having a baby that don't involve abortions. How about that? And if you don't engage in those preventative measures in order to ensure that you don't get pregnant, and somehow you do get pregnant, if you are bound and determined to do something about that, I think you should have to spend your own money to do that, not the taxpayer dollar to do that. A service member, she says, in Alabama deserves to have the same access as a service member in California as a service member stationed in Korea. Singh said the policy is not specifically about abortion. It's not an abortion policy, she said. The department does not have an abortion policy. We have a health care policy. We have once again, Hyde Amendment, everyone. We have a travel policy that allows for service members to take advantage of health care that would be accessible to them. Is our military engaged in transgender services?
You mean like actual surgeries and stuff?
Yeah, are the taxpayers paying for that? I think they are, aren't they? I think we're woke.
I remember hearing something about that having occurred, but I don't remember if it got shot down or stopped, or so I'm not sure is the answer.
What is amazing to me about this conversation, the United States military, at least the woke upper brass within the United States military under the Biden administration, they seem to act as if there is not an absolutely 100% guaranteed free way to prevent yourself from becoming pregnant if you don't want to be pregnant. And hell, even if you do become pregnant, what was the name of the morning after drug? Was it RU86?
Are you 186?
I know it was 86, and I think it was, yeah, I don't know. Maybe it was RU186. I mean,
to go back to what you were saying earlier, I don't know if it's still going on, but there was a point, yes, where the military was paying for the surgeries and all follow-up care.
why?
But this is an article from 2021. So, and again, I think I heard something about that having stopped, but I could be wrong.
When asked how the, quote, standoff, which isn't really a standoff, could end, the department spokesperson, Sabrina Singh, said, I think you should ask Senator Tuberville. We're certainly asked him how this ends. The Secretary of Defense has had 3 calls with him this year. No middle ground between the Pentagon and Tuberville. All Tuberville wants is a vote. If you're going to change Pentagon policy, if you're going to allow people to travel on the taxpayer dime against the spirit of the Hyde Amendment to go have an abortion in a state that still allows abortions, then at very least the Congress, the elected representatives, should approve this. And oh, by the way, in case you missed it, Senator Tommy Tuberville is in no way preventing the promotion of any military person to a higher rank. He is demanding that the Senate go about it under regular order. In other words, bring it up individually, not en masse, have a vote. You got the votes. The Democrats have the votes. There's zero that Tuberville or any other Republican can do to stop that outside of a long-form filibuster, but why would they do that? And Tuberville has already said, if you want to do it singularly, you can do it singularly. And you know what they say to that? Chuck Schumer complains that that would take too long, that it's too hard to do it that way.
Are you 486?
Are you 486? I knew it was 86 because of the old school, like 86 is like,
yeah,
let's 86 the guy.
Right.
Yeah, so are you 486? Are you for termination, essentially? Thank you to all of the super texters who are throwing that in there. Terry B. writes in, says, getting pregnant's not like getting cancer. You have a choice. You make choices. Is the military also going to cover my cancer treatment cost and treatment costs for other medical issues that I have? Who knows? But they do. It is there. If you've noticed, whether we're talking about transgender issues or COVID-19 or our United States military personnel or abortion or whatever, the statists within the government, the political socialist left wing of the government, the Bernie Sanders, the AOCs, the Elizabeth Warrens, the Joe Bidens, they talk about us as if we are children, that we cannot make grown-up decisions for ourselves. Simultaneous to talking about and with us as if we're children, oh, you can't possibly be expected to have that abortion procedure on your own. Here, let the government help you. Oh, you can't possibly be expected to raise your family on your own. Here, let the government help you. Oh, you can't possibly be expected to make the proper decision regarding COVID-19. Here, let the government help you with a vaccine or 2 or 8, and we'll mandate them. They think we're children. They treat us like children because they want you to think like children so as to be better subjects as opposed to citizens, politically active citizens at that. So it's of no surprise to me that, yes, when talking about these abortions, they act as if it is something that happened to these military personnel that they had nothing to do with. Like they're in a war zone and they get shot by the enemy. No fault of their own. The idea that the United States military would be responsible for your transgender surgery or for your abortion is disgusting. Not based on the individual issues, but based on the concept that you can't make appropriate decisions for yourself if you want to choose that lifestyle or if you want to choose to get pregnant and that it's your responsibility for the choices that you've made. And if you choose not to be responsible on the front end, then you're going to be responsible on the back end. Hell, you don't have to be responsible for anything. So we'll talk to Tommy Tuberville about that, and we'll talk with you about that coming up in just a few moments as we open up the phone line, 615-737-9986. Rose will be first up. It's 1:50 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It is Matt Murphy and you. I'm looking at the super text line. Lots of interesting things going on there. I've ignored you, super texters. I'll get to a few of those momentarily. It's 1:56. Let's go to the phones and talk with Rose, who's out in Old Hickory. Hey, Rose, how are you?
All right. And how are you, Matt?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for calling.
It's good to talk to you. You are so upbeat and such an informative show. I am calling to say that maybe 15 or 20 minutes ago, I heard a lady speaking about a political event that is coming up soon, but that's all I got. Could you tell me the date and where this event is going to be held?
Yes, ma'am. The date is August 31st. I'm going over here to AFP right now because I don't want to get the I think it's AFP. Hold on. Let me do it myself so that I don't screw it up.
Okay.
.com. Let's see. All right, waiting on my computer. My computer's running slow.
Well, so am I.
Okay, very good. It is. Do you have a pen or a piece of paper handy, Rose?
I certainly do.
Okay, it's AF as in Frank, P
yes.
as in Paul.
Yes.
TN Summit.com. And that will route you to a page that has 3 different summits on it. It says West Tennessee Summit, Knoxville Summit, and then Middle Tennessee Summit, and that's the one we want, August 31st in Nashville.
All right. And would you give me the time, or do I get all the information at this website?
No, ma'am. I think I'm looking at it right now. I want to make sure it is starting at 6 o'clock.
All right. Thank you so much, and keep on doing what you're doing.
Well, you're very kind. I hope to see you there on the 31st, Rose.
I hope to be there. Thank you very much.
Of
Bye-bye.
course. 6 to 8:30 p.m., August 31st. That is a Thursday night. It is the Tennessee-Nashville Summit at the Millennium Maxwell House.
Does anybody else notice that Matt always has a lady calling him on the call-in line?
What do you mean? What do you mean by that? I always have a lady.
Yeah.
I mean, I have multiple ladies. That's Miss Rose.
Ain't that the truth?
That's Ms. Rose.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Very nice.
She is very nice.
Well, I mean, look, she was looking for information. I provided information. She enjoys listening to
her out. You're such a good guy.
I try to do what I can. There's a lot of speakers that will be there to include Congressman Andy Ogles. Can't wait to talk to Andy. I predict, Bell, don't you start trouble.
No, I'm not.
I predict that this will be the beginning of a reinvigoration of Andy and I's relationship.
One can only hope.
No, I'm going to no, I'm sincere when I say that I'm going to reach out to Andy on the night of this event, and I'm going to say, look, I want to restart our relationship in Middle Tennessee. I want to do that with a handshake, and I want to get you back on the show. What do you guys think?
Well, hopefully he won't lay hands on you and say he's going to ruin you.
I am not. Tommy is lying and the truth ain't in him. He called me a hair sniffer. That was a dastardly lie brought up by Mandis in Nashville's Morning News to try to besmirch my good name and character, and I'm not going to put up with it. Here's Jay Harper with the news.
Good afternoon. It is exactly 2 p.m., and I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. We've got a mix of sun and clouds, 85 degrees. A complete forecast is just around the corner. 1 week after the wildfires consumed so many homes on the Hawaiian island of Maui, many thousands remain displaced, and more than 1,000 people are still missing. And more than 100 people now are confirmed dead. ABC's Melissa Adon is in the district of Kula on the Hawaiian island of Maui with more.
On Kula, this is a community here that also lost homes, areas. There's a marketplace, kind of a bed and breakfast here near where we are. One of those areas destroyed. It is devastating because so many of these communities have been hard hit, but relief is out there. It is a slow process. Folks have to apply, but it is on its way.
In some money news today, U.S. mortgage rates surged again this week, rising to their highest level in 21 years. The 30-year fixed rate mortgage averages 7.09%. A year ago, the 30-year fixed was at 5.13%. The combination of low inventory and high costs has squeezed many would-be homebuyers, sending home sales about 20% lower than just a year ago. And a federal appeals court has ruled in favor of stricter regulations on the abortion drug mifepristone. But as of right now, the ruling won't change women's access to the drug.
The fate of the abortion drug mifepristone now in the hands of the Supreme Court after a federal appeals court Wednesday ruled the drug should be more tightly regulated than it is now in a case that revolves around the FDA's decision to approve the drug more than 2 decades ago. But until the Supreme Court decides whether or not to take this case on appeal, it won't change women's access to the drug.
That is Jay O'Brien reporting from Washington. That is the latest news. Weather's on the way. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
Hello, folks. Matt Murphy for Craft Body Scan, which seems to be a brand new technology, but it's been around for a minute or two. Since 2017, Craft Body Scan has been offering CT scans for the general public for the issue of preventing anything, or identifying, I should say, anything that might be within your body before you are able to feel it and before you become symptomatic. And that's what it's all about, peace of mind. I went and had a private health consultation with Craft Body Scan. Could not be more pleased with it. One of the reasons I love telling you about this is how easy it was. We sat down and talked about me, my age, some of the things that I've dealt with over the years. We all have certain medical issues. And then we got to the business of getting scanned. Scanned on site, it took about 5 to 7 minutes. No longer than that. And the report came back after it was reviewed by a board-certified radiologist, and I was A-OK. I got high marks with my heart, with my lungs, which was a little bit of a surprise to me. And I now know that I'm all good when it comes to everything within my body. A full body scan is available for you. And right now, as a way to introduce you to Craft Body Scan, they're offering a $149 heart and lung scan for a couple. So you and a significant other can go get your heart and lung scanned and find out the results and have that level of peace of mind for $149. Spell Craft with a C, craftbodyscan.com to sign up today, craftbodyscan.com, or 615-436-1000. 436-1000 for Craft Body Scan. Here we go. Hour number 3, Matt Murphy Show. 2:40 or so, we'll speak with Senator Tommy Tuberville. He is the senior senator from the state of Alabama. 2 main issues to discuss with Tommy. 1, his hold on Pentagon nominations. 2, NIL and what, if anything, the federal government should do about that. In the meantime, there was a Trump event earlier today. We'll talk with Representative Scott Sapicki about that and the upcoming special session. He has a brand new piece of legislation that he has introduced regarding SROs, and we will discuss that with Scott coming up in just a few moments once he gets upstairs. I don't know if Debbie Matthews is here or not. I heard that she might be here, so we're going to welcome her in if she chooses to come. We might have Debbie come in tomorrow or today. I don't know. It's just my show. It's my name on the nameplate, so who knows? Look, there's Scott Sapicki. Oh, look, I didn't know who was who. Headless Bell standing right next to Sapicki, and I couldn't tell who was who. Sapicki looking, Scott is looking particularly Natalie attired, and I wonder if there was some sort of big event that I was unaware of. I mean, my goodness, if I didn't know any better, you can just move my stuff, just put that anywhere. If I didn't know any better, I would think that Scott Sapicki was, I don't know, what's the fanciest place I can think of? I would think Sapicki would be like at the Four Seasons or something or another. I mean, my goodness gracious. How's it going?
Ooh.
So there was a big Trump event.
It was a big league event.
That would be Donald J. Trump, the presidential frontrunner for the 2024. I mean, no, you're looking great. I mean, no, you're always in a suit, but you found the best suit in the closet for this one. No, you look great. How was it?
Very interesting. I got to see him for all of 10 seconds before the Secret Service agent took my phone.
Well,
no pictures.
That's the way that goes, I guess.
But it was nice. The president came in town for a fundraiser. A lot of people were there. The congressmen were there. Glenn Jacobs was there from Knoxville. I didn't get to stay for the event because we have this thing coming up on Monday. I don't know if you've heard of it, called a special session.
Yeah, I think I've heard a thing or two about that thing.
And so we're trying to figure out what's going to happen with that.
I do. Is it still going on? The event's still going on?
As of right now, yes.
Oh, wow.
Oh, the Trump event?
Yeah. Oh, they shut her down?
Yeah, they should shut down by now.
So special session, the big question I'm getting, and, I continue to say this, that maybe I'm being Pollyanna. I don't think I am, but I keep getting asked the question, why the necessity for it? And it's maybe not a question to ask the General Assembly. I had Governor Bill Lee on yesterday, asked him the question. He answered the question. But do you concur with his belief that it's best to handle these issues regarding public safety and then move on from them in January, or could some of this be? I mean, is it a little bit of both, that some of this could have been handled in January?
Well, when you look at the whole issue, and let's face it, the whole issue that brought us here was covenant. That's what got everybody started talking. And that happened about a month and a half before we adjourned. Most of the bills that we are contemplating right now, in theory, could have been done before the end of session. Mm-hmm. So if they were an emergency now, why weren't they an emergency then when we had a month and a half to fix it, when we were still there? And run it through the normal process where it goes through the committee system and there's time to discuss and really delve into the issues, right? But the governor has made the call. And so as a legislator, I am bound by my oath to answer the call of the governor. What that means going forward in the session, I don't know. I'm hearing a lot of different things from different members up there about what's going to happen. The one bill, and the bill that I filed about the SROs, we didn't know about that policy change till after we adjourned. And with school starting and school safety and public safety being a main issue, you could argue that could be an emergency situation that we need to remedy right away to provide for a safer environment, because we got schools open right now in Metro Nashville and across the state. And there in Metro Nashville, in our elementary schools, there's no protection. There's no SRO officers for those kids in those elementary schools.
So I want to talk the specifics of that bill in a moment, but I circle back to this because the thought occurred to me when I was talking with Steve Abramowitz and Tori Venable earlier, that the nature of a special session, almost embedded in the definition of it, is that there's an emergency going on within the state that needs to be addressed right now that can't wait.
That's correct.
And this specific special session was contemplated and eventually called by the governor due to covenant. I don't think anybody would deny that.
That's true. I mean, let's be honest.
So it's a little ironic that the session was called based on the emergency nature of the aftermath of covenant. So one would think, well, you're going to deal with things specific to that event, but the legislature can't really deal with anything specific to that event because they don't have all of the information that they need to ascertain exactly what happened and what, if anything, they can do, because that information is tied up in court.
And that's one of the things that we've argued is, okay, why are we running this piece of legislation? What it's in response to the shooting and public safety? Well, I don't know. Right. And so we're kind of nibbling at this apple and sometimes taking a bite of an apple. Do we know it's going to address the situation at hand? I don't know. That's why it was so important that we were pushing so hard to get that manifesto, but the forces that be, the attorneys and lawsuits are going to tie this thing up in court for a while. We can't, even if we go into next year, Matt, we still have a job to do in Nashville when the General Assembly reconvenes. We still have a job to do of running the state of Tennessee. So it's a lot of the ideas, and you've probably seen a lot of these ideas, they're not bad things to talk about. But how do you talk about something when flow motion, I don't know if your listeners know what flow motion is, but it's a suspension of the rules where normally it takes me a bill that doesn't have any fiscal ramifications. It takes me 3 to 4 weeks to get it to the House floor.
Okay.
Under flow motion, I can have it there in 48 hours.
And that's what speeds up the nature of the special.
Correct. And so
you have the benefit of, and I try to break this down for the folks because a lot of people are like, why are we doing this? You have the benefit of limiting the session to specific items called upon by the governor.
Mm-hmm.
But the danger is in flow motion, right? Are you allowed amendments?
You can file amendments, and that's what also makes someone like me very nervous, is anybody can file, as long as it meets the caption of the bill that goes to the House floor, anybody can file an amendment on that bill as long as it meets the caption of that bill, which means even if you kill stuff in committee that aren't good bills for Tennessee, that same representative can still file an amendment on a bill on the House floor as long as it meets that caption.
And things are moving at such speed that you fear, you get nervous that these things might be slipped in without notice.
Well, that's my job, is to make sure that doesn't happen, along with others. We'll be watching this very closely.
I'm very excited about your SRO bill.
Mm-hmm.
And not because I think the state should willy-nilly take over the responsibilities of local communities,
mm-hmm.
but if we see an issue that a local community is not addressing, it's had ample time to address, and it refuses to do so, and it's against the public safety of the community at large, I would expect that the General Assembly would take it up. Tell me about your bill.
So there's a Matt Murphy clause in here. I'm going to give you a little credit, okay? The bill that we wrote is in response to, as we all know, Metro Nashville, Adrian Battle, the superintendent of the schools, and then Chief Drake having issues with not being able to find SROs, didn't choose to take the money for elementary schools, to protect their elementary schools.
$5.25 million.
Yes, and that was not sitting well with members of the General Assembly. I know the governor was on with you yesterday, and he was talking about his consternation of why it was having trouble rationalizing why someone wouldn't take advantage of the money. And there's a provision in the bill that we passed that says a memorandum of understanding, an agreement, has to take place between the superintendent of schools and the chief law enforcement agent to agree to put SROs into schools. That was in the bill. And we thought that maybe, because Adrian Battle does not take an oath to public safety, but Chief Battle does.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe we thought, let's run a bill that says if they can't agree on this memorandum of understanding, let's allow the chief of police, because he swore an oath for public safety, that he could have the ability to place SROs into school, even if the superintendent doesn't want them, to provide public safety for our most vulnerable, Matt, right? Elementary schools.
Right.
Our most vulnerable students. And to signal to everybody, and there are crazy people out there, we know that all our schools will be protected in the state of Tennessee from someone wishing to do our kids harm.
Yeah, the issue, and
I'm sorry, the Matt Murphy clause
yes,
was instead of shall, was may. Local control.
Well, sure.
Small government. I mean, give them the choice, right?
Right.
And then
I love it because, in effect, what you're doing is you're asking everybody to turn their cards over on the table.
Right.
Because right now, I think, there's some talk about, we don't have the time to find the people and whatnot. And a lot of us were scratching our heads thinking, okay, wait a minute. I understand you're short in the Metro Nashville Police Department. I understand that you don't want to take further officers off the street necessarily to put them in the school systems. That's not a choice you want to have to make, kind of a Sophie's choice. At the same time, I have a hard time believing that in 12 months that we can attract with $5.25 million of money provided by the General Assembly and the taxpayers of Tennessee, that you can't go a long way toward filling those roles. It's just hard for me to believe.
Well, you would agree with me that if you don't try, you will never succeed.
Well, that's true.
Right? You will never have another SRO in an elementary school unless you take the money and try. I can tell you this. I did the data, and I think I might have sent it to you, that in the law enforcement academy in Metro Nashville last year, they graduated 177 officers. Year to date, they've already graduated another 77, I think the number is, or 71. So there are people who are applying for Metro Nashville to come to work here. I'm sure that there are some of those people that would gladly volunteer to go into these classrooms and protect our children. I'm getting emails from citizens in Nashville, because I was one of the sponsors of this bill, why our schools aren't being protected. And I refer them to Battle. I refer them to Chief Drake. I refer them to their Metro Council members and their school board members. But there comes a point in time when we have to make sure that we eliminate all the obstacles to somebody that has sworn an oath to uphold public safety and allow them to do their job.
Well, and I'll give credit to the General Assembly that you thought you had done that when you eliminated the obstacle of money.
Who'd have thought?
Right? And yet still they seem to be loath to want to place SROs in elementary schools. They claim that it's a matter of not getting the applicants. We'll see.
Well, here's a question for you. Have you been to elementary schools and see the SRO officers interact with children?
Yes, I've seen it. Mm-hmm.
It's incredible, isn't it?
It is.
These kids, especially in our urban cities, right, who may not have a great home life or have issues there, the one stabilizing person there is that SRO officer that they get to know is there to protect them. And instead of teaching our youth to fear our police, why don't we teach them that when something happens, you run towards that person for safety and help? There are many good things that could happen with this. One of them is, and this is, and I'll drop it at this, Matt, is the Covenant shooter, I believe the last shot was fired 2.5 to 3 minutes into her breaking into the building. The incredible response from Metro Nashville was about 11 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
If there was an SRO in that school at Covenant, if there was, the response time would have been a lot less, to where maybe, just maybe, this tragedy may not have happened.
Well, and we do know that, and just in the interest of what we know, that there was an individual that had been trained, that had a gun, that had permission to be armed on campus, and sadly, that person was on vacation. So we'll never know.
And that's why we did the whole thing with the SROs, is make sure everybody has one for sure.
Right.
And then that might free up money at the local level where you could have floaters to cover for the vacations.
Yep.
Right? It's a matter of protecting our children, and especially, Matt, our most vulnerable. Now, you've seen my two boys.
Yeah, you're not vulnerable. You're not vulnerable.
But at least they have a chance. What chance did those teachers and kids have without a good guy with a gun to help them?
Well, that's right. That's right. And using, and I don't want to belabor it, but using their own training against them in terms of fire alarms that they had trained, and these youngsters were, we are told, excited. And you had the line leader who tragically became one of the victims.
And maybe, Leader Lambert's bill to address that, maybe that leads a change across the country to reevaluate what we actually teach our kids in the event of a bill going
Let's talk about the fire alarm bill here in just a moment. And I want to talk to you about this autopsy bill and get your thoughts on it. It's 2:20 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Scott Spicky sitting in with us for another few minutes. It's the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk. Hey, I just want to reiterate, we had a great conversation for about 30, 45 minutes with Steve Abramowitz of Mill Creek View. You know, he said he started Mill Creek View right before he got into Tennessee. Now Mill Creek View, Tennessee is one of the best-known podcasts in Middle Tennessee. And I'm excited to have Steve as a part of the show and a part of the team. And I encourage you to go to Mill Creek View, sign up, subscribe so you never miss an episode. They always have interesting guests, and they're making positive change within our community. You get arts and authors and culture and entertainment, sports, and a heavy dose, of course, of politics. They're frequently the number one show on politics on Podomatic. You can find them on Deezer, iTunes, iHeart, Spotify, all of your favorite podcast apps. It's Mill Creek View. And don't forget, you can find all of the podcasts and everything you want to know about the organization by going to mcview.us. That's mcview.us. Go see Steve and his gang at Mill Creek View.
Will former President Donald Trump's Georgia court proceedings be televised? And the mystery surrounding a missing Tennessee couple in Alaska continues. Those stories on the way at 2:30. I'm Jay Harper on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Jay Harper. It's 2:24, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Is that the information that we just talked about? Are we going to hold off on that for a minute?
Until tomorrow.
Okay, until tomorrow, because I don't want to get ahead of our skis.
But I'll let you know for sure.
Okay, very good. And I will let you know as soon as Scott lets me know. It's about the SRO bill that we were talking about, and we'll follow up on that in just a moment. I have to circle back to something.
Sure.
You saw DJT in person today.
Yeah.
That's what I call him, DJT.
Larger than life.
How does he, this guy is never not upbeat. I mean, I would imagine that he is invigorated, maybe even reinvigorated because of these indictments and whatnot. I'm sure he's just a ball of fire.
To see him, right, and he's not a young man, right? The enthusiasm that he meets his constituents, right, the people of the United States, to see the interaction he has with people. Now, I don't have the money to get that close to him, okay? But the people who did, the cheerfulness, the smile, and it doesn't ever look fake. You know what I mean? It looks like he's really appreciative. and I always tell people this all the time. Donald Trump is the kind of guy that you could be sitting at an Applebee's with and having a conversation about the country and feel totally fine with him. You know, there's not that the Mitt Romney-est of the world. Does that make sense to you? Mm-hmm. And he came into town, had a fundraiser, and then he right back out to another one. I would love to see what his last week looked like on all the stuff he has to go, where he has to fly, right? For all these fun. He's got, like you and I talked about off the air, $500 million, maybe more.
Yeah, I forget what the amount was last election cycle, but in order to run a presidential campaign, I think you're talking at least $500 million and probably somewhere in the neighborhood, probably closer to $1 billion than $500 million.
Well, you think he'll be fighting the mainstream media, excluding y'all.
Yep.
Right. He'll be fighting all of the newspapers, television, movie stars. I mean, you go down the list. He's going to be fighting everybody. And I think what the polls, and I know that Brian Wilson has talked about this, about how much he leads in the polls, right? So that shows you the galvanization of the Republican Party behind their candidate. I think he's running for an African-American vote, those who have been kicked over and downtrodden by the Biden administration.
Agreed.
The Hispanics that are here that feel like, and Hispanics are very pro-life, that the issues and the whole transgender issue, I think he'll be running towards them to court their vote. And I think he'll be headed towards the middle to say, are you better off, Ronald Reagan quote, right?
Yeah.
Are you better off now than, when I left office?
I mean, and I'm not one to give the man advice, but I would say that, they want to make this all about me. Mm-hmm. And I'm here to tell you it's all about you.
Do you remember, my wife is listening to, she's going to laugh. Do you remember the movie The Princess Bride?
I do.
And he used the word, and the guy says, I don't think you're using that correctly.
I don't think the word means what you think it means.
It's like Bidenomics, right? Mr. President, I don't think you're using that word correctly.
Well, I mean, and of course, the Democrats, I think they think this is their play. Mm-hmm. I think that the political leadership in the Democrat Party believes that every indictment is a confirmation that Donald Trump will be the nominee, and I think they like it that way. They know what's going to happen as a result of some of these sham indictments, but they want that because they think they can make it about Trump. I believe if Trump makes it about the last 4 years and makes it about the American people, one of the keenest things he said as president of the United States, when the phony media and the phony Democrats were going after him on Russian collusion, and when they got Robert Mueller and the special prosecution, he said, they're not after me. They're after you. I'm just in the way. Mm-hmm. And he spoke to the American people in that fashion. I think he continues to speak that language, and we continue to see the economy languishing under Biden and all of the fumbles on foreign policy initiatives and the southern border and all of those things. And I think there's a lane there.
Well, if they can weaponize the Department of Justice, the FBI, if they can weaponize the politics of the whole situation, Matt, they can get anybody. If they can get Trump, they can get anybody. 99.7 may not say something they like, and they can get you guys.
Oh, no, I said earlier in the week that if we allow political persecution and prosecution of speech in the manner that they're trying to accomplish in Georgia, talk radio is toast, as we know and understand it.
Correct.
Because I am then not allowed to suggest that the government's pulling the wool over your eyes but for fear of a criminal prosecution. You're criminalizing speech at that stage. And you could claim that every listener of Super Talk 99.7 WTN is a part of the criminal conspiracy. We're all a part of we'll all be charged with RICO.
So this is a very big battle that we're in. And this special session, right, we know coming up on Monday, there is no other General Assembly in session. Congress is out of session. So the whole focus on the country is going to be on Tennessee here. And I know, as Governor Lee said, our troopers will do a fabulous job protecting us. I'm not worried about them protecting me. I'm worried about people outside the Capitol interacting, and just heaven forbid something happens.
Real quick on one specific piece of legislation that we talked with House Majority Leader Lamberth about, I'm calling it the autopsy bill.
Yes.
Have you read the language there?
I have, yes.
Are you comfortable with the bill?
I have some concerns. Creating a special class of people. And if you look at the bill, I get it, right? I get it, and I see where it's coming from. And sometimes you pass a bill that seems very innocuous at the beginning. It's not this bill. It's the third or fourth bill down the road that continues to stifle transparency, right? Well, if you're willing to do an autopsy for them, what about them? Or a manifesto for these groups, or this document. And before you know it, there's no transparency in government. The thing that makes Tennessee so unique is we try to do our business as transparent as possible. I got a question for you, though.
All right, before you ask me that question, I'll say this in reflection on what you just said. I spoke to Majority Leader Lamberth. I spoke to the governor, and they both had an answer for this, but I cannot help but see the connective tissue between this bill and what happened in Covenant and the fact that the manifesto has not yet been released. And I think a lot of people are putting those two and two together. Maybe they're unrelated, but it's part of my concern with this.
It's a possibility. Sometimes we look at bills, Matt, based off of unintended consequences, right? Mm-hmm. It seems good on the front end of it, but if you start looking at the back end and time, where this bill could lead to. And so this is what I'm talking about with flow motion.
Right.
You have to consider that bill in real time and make a decision right away. Whereas in normal session, you would have 2 or 3 or 4 weeks to ask questions and get answers to really drill down on this.
Okay. I know that Jay Harper's awaiting the news, but here's your question. Yes.
Yes. So you've been here 300 and almost 400 shows?
401 days on show.
So what do you think about the state of Tennessee?
What?
What do you think about the state of Tennessee?
I love Tennessee. Tennessee she's not my new girlfriend anymore. I love the topography. I love the people. I do not find anything about Tennessee that is distasteful to me.
You're a lying dog-faced pony soldier.
Don't you do that to me.
Wow.
What a loser over there.
Well, you know what?
I love it.
I'm glad you're here.
I'm glad to be here.
I think that 99.7 does a great job of getting out the message. Sometimes you try not to take a side. You let both sides come in. I would just really, and I know you've been meeting with Alice Rowley and Freddie.
Freddie's coming on next Friday.
I think the questions you asked them both are valid, and they need to tell the people in Nashville how they're going to govern, and then let them decide based off what they say.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to be your government and the relationship that government will have with the state of Tennessee.
Well, thank you, Scott.
There you go.
I appreciate that. There's Representative Scott Sapicki, fresh. I mean, it's been a big day for Sapicki. He met Trump, and he's seen me today. So
it was a step in one direction.
That's good. You're right. Just a big step downward. We'll be back. Here's Jay Harper with the news.
Give me a break.
Good afternoon. It is 2:33, and I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. Mostly sunny, 85 degrees. A complete forecast is on the way. Georgia prosecutors in Fulton County continue to prepare for the former president's upcoming arraignment that's expected next month. That includes the potential for televised proceedings.
We can expect the week of September 5th, according to the prosecutor, and it is also going to be on camera. So unlike any of the other 3 criminal prosecutions the former president is facing, we're going to be able to see him in court. How that changes the dynamic, how that changes how the public may view this, certainly will be a much different presentation.
That's ABC's Aaron Katursky. A week after they were last seen, officials in Alaska are continuing to search for 2 Tennesseans who reportedly disappeared while hiking at a Fairbanks resort. Jonas Barre, 50 years of age, and Cynthia Hovespian, 37, of Nashville, were last seen back on August 10th on a hiking trail where search efforts have been ongoing. After they were officially reported missing on August 12th, police found Barre's rental car, and troopers then launched a search and rescue operation in the area. Thus far, however, officials say they have no leads. That is the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN 239. A busy show. I love it that way. First Amendment Freestyle Friday on tap for tomorrow. The Drive with Brian Wilson coming up in mere moments. Information-fueled and opinion-driven news talk radio for the masses on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. And we continue that busy day with the one and only Coach Tommy Tuberville. He is a United States Senator, the senior senator from the state of Alabama. And I've not talked to Tommy in a month of Sundays, but it's good to get to catch up with him on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Coach, how you doing? Is Coach there? Hello, Coach. Uh-oh. I can hear him. I don't know if he can hear me.
Can you hear me?
Hey, Coach, how are you?
Hey, what's going on?
Hey, Coach Matt Murphy here. Good to talk with you again. I don't think we've spoken since I left Birmingham about a year and a half ago, but it's good to finally catch up with you and talk about some issues that the United States of America's good conservative people are worried about. And thank you for being on with us.
I didn't know you had a 10-hour show, Matt.
I'm a little bit everywhere. Hey, before I ask you about the PASS Act, I want to ask you about the Pentagon, and I want you to tell the people of Tennessee. I think we know, and I think I've described it well, but describe to the people of the state of Tennessee what your goal is with regard to the Pentagon and why you're so concerned about some of their actions within the Biden administration.
Well, the problem, Matt, that we're having is the Democrats don't want to go by the Constitution. They want to go around it. They want to destroy it. And if we don't stand up for the Constitution, it's given us 247 years of freedom in this country, the greatest country ever known on the face of the earth. But these people up here, they want to change this country to something else. This is just another small step of saying, listen, I know we got a law. We passed it in 85, 3 exceptions for abortion, not going to spend any taxpayer money. But, hey, since Roe Wade came down, we're just going to change that. We're going to do it with a memo. We're going to send it out and say, listen, we're going to do this on our own, and it'll be all good. But no, they're not going to do that. And I'm up here to stand up for the people of Alabama and this country for the Constitution, and that's what we're going to do. And this Pentagon and White House, I mean, they've lost their mind. I mean, number one, our military, I'm on the Armed Services Committee. I've never seen a military go so woke so fast, not just the military, but the entire, all the institutions up here in Washington, D.C. But they're going to have to go around me or over me. They're not going to go through me because I'm going to stand with what I believe in, and we're going to stand up for the Constitution.
Well, just to know that the people of the state of Tennessee, the good conservatives in the state of Tennessee, stand behind you, Coach, in your effort to do what you're doing. We appreciate you standing alone, and I know that many of our great senators around the country are supportive of what you're doing. Tell me a little about the PASS Act, the Protecting Athletes, Schools, and Sports Act.
Well, what a mess. It might be a worse mess than our government. We'll try to do this. Joe Manchin and I, a year ago, sat down with several coaches, athletic directors, presidents, and said, we need some help. I said, okay, guys, here's the deal. Y'all friends of mine. I love college sports. But you get the feds involved. I mean, it's not a policy or rule. It's a law. And we got to have something because what happened when Supreme Court said these kids can make money off their name, image, and likeness, which I'm fine with. Hey, if you think that you're good enough that you can go out and represent a company or sell a product with your name after you've come to a school, I'm good with that. I'm fine. But I'll tell you, when that came down, it just turned the coaches loose in recruiting, going out, and some states, Matt, are offering kids $50,000, $100,000 in 9th or 10th grade and saying, we'll give you this money until you get here in 3 or 4 years. Well, that's not what this was meant for. It was meant to help kids when they get there to make money. And, Alabama can't do that. Tennessee can't do that. And but some states have a true advantage. So Joe Manchin and I did all of our due diligence for a year. We talked to hundreds of people. We got reports. We looked at things that were going on. We brought people up here that have actually been in the fight for a year. And this is not my bill or Joe Manchin's bill. This is the bill that coaches and players and parents say this is what we need to do. And it's 5 or 6 things that basically get everybody on the same page. Now, the NCAA is going to step up, man up a little bit and do their job once if we can get this passed because they got to build around it. but we got to get most people on the same page. You know, for California, for instance, they want to unionize everybody. Well, all the Democrats want to unionize everybody, to be honest with you. And so we're going to fight for it. We'll see how far it goes. I don't know whether Schumer will ever bring it to the floor. I know several coaches, including Saban, came to see him a few weeks ago and trying to get him to put it on the floor. But if it doesn't make it to the floor, it's got no chance. So we'll see what happens.
I mean, the concern here, and you probably know better than most, considering how long you were a football coach in the college ranks, but the concern is that you're going to further separate the haves and the have-nots, and you almost create two different, completely different divisions of the caliber of football you're talking about. I mean, I would expect that you would only have, if we allow this to play out the way that it's playing out, you're only going to have, 15 or maybe 20 teams that have an ability to win a national championship. And the also-rans, because those teams are going to have the money to get the best players if you don't structure it in some way. Is that kind of the idea?
Yeah, you're exactly right. I'd say 10 to 15 are going to be able to control it. The problem is, even though 10 or 15, you talk to Saban or Freeze or be anybody in the SEC, they will tell you, listen, you go out and raise this money and you go out and sign a receiver, he comes in, you say you pay him, I'm just throwing a number out, $300,000. And he turns out can't play very well. That guy's going to come say, wait a minute, I gave all this money. How come he's not playing? I mean, it's like it's a double-edged sword. And also you're going to get fatigue of donors. And what I'm concerned about is all this money is going to go to a dozen players or so on each team, and you're going to lose Olympic sports and women's sports because where's the funding going to come from? It's all going to go to basketball and football. And that's not what this is about. We tried to structure this bill, Matt, that would protect education and protect the athlete, not just the institution, but also the athlete. There's a lot of these kids that got contracts that went to school and didn't get any money. So it's out of control. We're trying to do something. I don't know whether we can. I don't know whether we can get the Democrats to even go along with us up here, but I know we have to do something. And I just hope that we can get something done before we lose it.
And I subscribe to the Reagan model. I know you do as well, Tommy. You're a conservative guy, and Ronald Reagan said the 9 most dangerous words in the English language are "I'm from the government and I'm here to help." And so, what do you say? I mean, how do you explain it to people that come to you and say, "Well, the last thing we need is the federal government getting involved in this"? Because I kind of agree with you. Without some sort of structure, without some oversight, it's going to get crazy very, very – it's already kind of gotten a little crazy, but it's going to get even crazier more quickly. How do you respond to, hey, we don't need the federal government involved in this?
Yeah, I looked at that. Don't think that Joe Manchin and I didn't do our due diligence before we got involved in this. And as I told you earlier, I told all my buddies in coaching, athletic directors and presidents, I'm not sure you don't want to think about this before you get us involved. Because once you do, then you start getting controlled by the federal government, and we see how sorry they are at running anything. But it's just we've got to pay attention to it. We don't need to go real fast with it. There's not a whole lot of solutions. We've always had problems with NCAA. Can they handle their job? No, they can't. We understand that. I've never been a big fan. I do like Chris Baker, the new president. He's got his hands full, but you got two different animals when you got football and basketball. They're totally different. But we've got to do something. In 2 weeks, you're going to pick up a roster, go to your favorite team, and half of those kids were at another school this time last year. And it's just you can't build anything. I used to really enjoy going and signing these 2 and 3 and some 4-star athletes and building a team. Mm-hmm. And they had loyalty and they worked hard and they loved each other and they'd fight for each other and those kind of things. You don't have that anymore. I mean, this is just like the federal government ruining something else in our future, and I hate it.
Let me add more broadly while we're on the subject. In the couple of minutes that we have left, does it concern you how quickly college football is becoming something that I don't recognize? I mean, I enjoy it. We're all going to enjoy it this fall. Don't get me wrong. I'm not knocking it, and I understand that things change. But this conference realignment, how quickly the Pac-12 was just decimated, I mean, some of this has to do with NIL and the wild west of these collectives. Does it concern you where that's going?
We can go here and make $30 million a year. We can go here and make $40 million a year. And these athletic directors don't have a clue. Most of them, don't really understand the ins and outs of business and the politics that get involved. There's going to be a lot of growing pains. There's going to be a lot of disappointed people, and there's going to be a lot fewer of these young men and women that will graduate because of this transfer rule. Graduation and getting an education should be the number one thing. If you want to go to the NFL, go. I mean, I'm for kids making money. My gosh, I mean, look at Auburn and Alabama. I'd love to have done this in my coaching career. Come out of spring ball, well, we ain't got a quarterback. Let's go buy one. And they did. Alabama went and bought one. Auburn went and bought one. A lot of other schools did that. Went out and bought a running back or whatever. I mean, is that what this is about? To me, it's not. Now, again, I might be on the wrong page. A lot of people might say, well, I don't agree with the coach. That's fine. But I grew up in this business, and I saw how many people got helped through college sports, men and women, and going to another level of society. And I'm just afraid that's not going to work in this venue.
Coach, the funniest headline that I've seen in a while, and I've seen it over the last several days, having really nothing to do with you except that this story came up in the news regarding the blind side and Michael Orr. Senator Tommy Tuberville still earns royalties from the blind side. Is that true?
Oh, yeah. If you got a speaking part in any movie, you make a certain amount. And probably and you get a check every quarter because you have to belong to the Screen Actors Guild. Right. And we all did. If you do Ford commercials or Coke commercials, Nick, and everybody involved, and you probably get, maybe $200 or $300 a quarter, and I think, it set all the rich senators and had some of these guys and women making $20 and $30 million. Senator Tommy Tuberville made $1,700 last year on the blind side. I'm thinking, boy, if $1,700 means you're rich, I got problems because I run out of money real quick.
Well, at least you're getting a little something for. You lost Michael Orr, right? You didn't get him, so.
No, yeah, I was at Auburn at the time, and of course Ed Orgeron was at Ole Miss. He ended up getting him, but the Tuohys were good friends. I've known them forever. Fred Smith of FedEx owned the movie, and his daughter did the movie, her production company. But it was a great movie. I don't know the ins and outs now of what happened with the adoption and not adoption, or who got the money or whatever. I know Michael Orr didn't really like the movie as much because it was more about Sandra Bullock and his mom than it was about him. But at the end of the day, it was a great movie, and I think a lot of people got a lot of things from it, and it's been very popular.
Coach, in the final moments that we have, I want to broaden the question and just ask you to give us some words about where we are as a country and where we need to be. I mean, we seem a rudderless ship with this current occupant in the White House. I mean, sadly, the president doesn't seem to know what day it is half the time. We've got an open southern border. What concerns you most about where we are as a nation right now?
We're not doing anything for the American people. Everything's for somebody else. We followed all this COVID nonsense, and it was something that was wrong, killed a lot of people. There's a lot of theories out there of what happened now. Now you got this climate hoax, and they're forcing that. They're trying to get power up here for some reason. Everybody wants power instead of doing something for the greatest country on the face of the earth. But I will tell you this, we have no leadership. I don't know who's running the country, really don't. I do know this. We're $33 trillion almost in debt, and the enemy's at the gate of our country. And we're losing our morals, our values, and our education. Everything's been corrupted. And for some reason, you still have a lot of people voting for this stuff. I don't understand it. I really don't. But when we lost God in the 60s in our schools, we started the downward fall of the United States of America. We're going to get it back. It's going to take a lot of hard work. I'm a Donald Trump guy all the way because he's not a politician, and he will fight back, and that's what we need, a fighter.
Look, when you announced your candidacy in the state of Alabama, I never thought I was going to say what I'm about to say to you, Coach, and that is, as good of a football coach as you were, I think you're a better senator. How about that?
Oh, my God. Don't say that. Don't say that.
I'll talk to you soon, Coach. Take care. Thank you for the interview.
All right, man.
All right, see you soon. There's Coach Tommy Tuberville spending a few good minutes with us. We whooped him over in Georgia, so I get to say that. It's 54 after the hour. The world-famous Glock store is right there on Airlane Drive, just off of Elm Hill Pike and well within the sound of my voice. If you're anywhere within the sound of my voice, you need to get to the Glock store. If you believe in the Second Amendment, you need to train at the Glock store. The Glock store has 4 dedicated tactical shooting rooms. You don't have lanes at the Glock store. They don't believe in the lanes. They believe in shooting rooms because you don't live your life in a lane. You're never going to use your gun in real life in a lane. You're going to use it in a room or out of doors, and they train you for a more realistic reaction time, more realistic training at the Glock store. Secondarily, they make parts right on site to give to your gun. Performance parts I'm talking about, like pyramid triggers, tungsten guide rods, extended controls, and the like. The Glock store will even install these for free while you wait at the world-famous Glock store, and you can shop around. They're never going to hard sell you. They're just going to find the gun that's right for you, and whatever your level of expertise, they are there to aid you in your search for a new gun, a first-time gun, or for some training. Go to GlockStore.com or Shoot270.com for the world-famous Glock store. Tell them Matt Murphy sent you to the Glock store.